Hello, welcome back to the Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan. Today, I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Wyatt,
Hello.
Alex Prime,
What a head bopping time.
and Twilight Realm Alex.
Hello.
We're all
Wish I could
here.
make some Legend of Zelda weird Twilight noise.
The weird Twilight noise. Yep.
Excuse me, I
It's
need
hard
to
to
go
do.
get like a banged up trumpet or something.
Banged up trumpet. That is probably how that noise was made, so I'll give you that. Alright, we're talking about the Sony PlayStation Showcase that they did a little while ago. It's not the State of Play. This was the actual showcase, a special event. They wanted to preempt everyone else for Summer Games Fest. They were just like, oh, you guys are going in June? Nah, we're hitting late May. So, yeah, we're talking about it in June because there was a bunch of other stuff going on, but we still got games to talk about. People still care about Marathon, I think. So, we're going to get into it.
Do? They do?
We'll find out, maybe.
There are
This will
30-year-old message boards where people are still trying to figure out secrets from the marathon games. It is a secretly thriving
Alive and
community.
kicking, maybe too
Yeah.
much. Might be the answer. All right, we're
Well,
going
like,
to
it's
get
And now
into it.
streaming.
It's been dug out of its grave and reanimated like Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, lifted up a little scarily. It's very strange. All right, we're gonna go in order of what showed up in the show, and then we'll take tangents as we take them. At the end, if we have anything we want to talk more about, we will. That's likely gonna be where things like Metal Gear and Spider-Man get talked about in length, and not just as reacting to what they showed. We'll get started with the trailer for Fair Games with a money symbol instead of an S. Good branding, on point.
Oh, yeah.
It's an extraction shooter. That's about all we know, I think,
That
about
is
Fair Games.
not the only one we'll see today.
Not the only one we'll see today, and this is really, I think, signaling the start of Sony. A while back put out that they were working on like 10 live service games that just hadn't made it to any kind of announcement yet. So I think there was definitely a bit of a mixed reaction at the end of the show based on how many were shown. But I think individually, Fair Games to me looked fine. This is really not a gameplay trailer, so we don't have any sense of what this is actually going to play like. But I know Wyatt and I were watching this and immediately jumped to the Robin Hood PvPvE like heist
Oh
game.
my God.
Because this is specifically a heist game. It's not just
Forgot about that game.
extraction shooter. This is a heist-themed thing where teams of heisters take on some thing to nab money from the rich. It's made from a lot of veteran people. It's Haven Studios' first big project, I believe, and Haven is headed up by a number of really experienced people, formerly from all over the games industry. So it's an experienced team, but not necessarily experienced working together. That's always going to be a tester. But yeah, I think this could be fun. This one I'm a little bit more in on because I think the theming is pretty good for an extraction shooter of just like, yeah, we can just do the heist thing. We don't need to overcomplicate it with marathon lore. We can just do the heist thing, and it's fine. I think the Robin Hood game had the problem of like, I don't want to play a competitive Robin Hood game.
Did you guys play that game at all?
I
No.
played like one round of it, and it was immediately.
I played
like,
a
this
couple
is-
matches. I don't think it was awful, but it also wasn't that good.
I am
don't know, it
solidly
was like
not the audience for that game.
It was like a real like 5 or 6 out of 10, and I mean that in both the best and the worst way.
Yeah,
I think, I'm going to put a blanket statement for a lot of the extraction shooters that we're going to talk about today. It's not really my thing. I'm just, it's I feel very similarly to battle royales where I see this game, it looks kind of interesting, and then someone tells me it's an extraction shooter, or it's a battle royale. I'm like, all right, I'm just not. That doesn't interest me at all.
Really feels like the hot new thing this season. Instead of making a battle
Instead of
royale,
battle
you
royale,
make a
yeah.
extraction shooter. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It
I
is-
think this is what is weird to me is that Bungie was acquired by Sony a little ways back. I have to assume Marathon was probably in development before that acquisition, just because of timing things. And my guess here is that it's just an unfortunate timing of both of these studios are probably already working on extraction shooters, and now Sony is publishing two really big extraction shooters up against each other.
We'll
Though
see
it is
how big
important
they are.
to note, a number of these are cross-platform. The PlayStation Showcase here, a lot of these titles did end up being cross-platform. Xbox has a handy little thing that they published out that's like, this is what's also coming to Xbox.
They posted this cheeky little like, "Hey, look at all these games that are also coming to Xbox. Ain't that cool?"
Yeah, I mean, I think
That
that it
was
is
kinda
legitimately
funny.
like I'm kind of glad they posted, and I hope Sony does the same thing for anything Microsoft shows off that's coming to Sony stuff. Because I
There's
do
something about
actually think it
the
was very helpful.
Oh no, it is. There's just
PC right
something
in the middle
about
that gets them anyway.
there's just something about like the tweet
All it takes is
itself
time.
and the timing just felt very cheeky.
Yeah, it absolutely felt cheeky. I
Mm.
think that's very
with
clear.
maybe because of Redfall's recent success in quotes, maybe a dash of desperation of like, hey, look at all these games are coming to Xbox too. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Is that cool?
Yeah. So I think it's helpful. It's a cool little tweet that I just misplaced because I decided to go to Xbox's June Starfield announcement page and not the correct one. But
I wouldn't mind seeing that again.
yeah, it is. So the games that are coming to Xbox, I'll mark these as we talk about each one. Marathon, since we've talked about Marathon a fair bit already, I'll mention Marathon is. Fair Games is not on this list, so I think that makes sense. Fair Games is fully acquired by PlayStation Studios, so.
But will Marathon be on the Mac again?
You
My
know, Bungie
God.
really got to come full circle. I hope it is just for the meme. All right. Let's move on to the next thing here, unless anyone else has things they want to say about Fair Games.
Nope.
Doesn't sound like it.
No.
All right. Well, our next big announcement here was one that, Wyatt, I think you were personally very shocked by, which is Helldivers 2.
Yeah, that was cool. I remember playing Helldivers when it first came out back in the day, and I've always wanted to get back into it because it is such a cool it's such a cool game. If you've never played it, I'll briefly explain it. The first one was like a top-down co-op shooter where you had to complete some fairly simple objectives. But the thing is that it's super hardcore. So like friendly fire is not only a thing, it doesn't reduce damage at all. You really have to like control your fire. And that was always the kind of hook for me was that like, wow, every single person is dangerous, not just to the enemy, but to you.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah,
it
I
was
feel like it
very
emphasized
chaotic.
teamwork.
Not something you can
too.
play with blueberries.
Yeah, it's the kind of top-down game where it basically requires a crouch and a prone button just so that you're not constantly shooting each other in the back. It's great. Although this one, third-person shooter, notably
Yeah,
not
they
a
went full
top-down
third
shooter,
person. It's like a
which is
budget
interesting.
increase here. The
Well,
way
the
this was
first one did
playing
well.
reminded me a lot of EDF in a way.
Really?
Like Defense Force games. I think just like the overwhelming number of enemies and then the squad of players with extremely powerful weapons that will one-shot each other is also a very EDF thing. Like, I think for people that haven't played it, EDF kind of looks like goofy Dynasty Warriors with guns, but it is also like if you're playing multiplayer and you play the class that can lay down like napalm bombing runs, you can just kill your entire team. It isn't a thing where that's not possible. So yeah, it reminds me of that, and I love those games. So I'm personally a lot more excited by this one. I didn't love the first Helldivers. I think just because the top down and the fact that it was pretty much you had to play multiplayer really to have the most fun in it, and I just didn't know anyone who was playing it. I think meant that it was because of how hardcore it was. It wasn't really fun to play with random people for the most part. So I think I would have been more into it with a squad, but I'm hoping this one seems like a good time. And it had a great kind of introduction here that was very tongue in cheek with the Super Earth.
It tricked me. It fooled me. I thought it was going to be like another trailer for that Starship Trooper game that was just announced.
Yeah,
I thought maybe it was going to be
Ah.
like a hey, it's coming to
I mean,
PlayStation 2.
It definitely takes a lot of inspiration from.
Oh,
Absolutely.
100%.
Which is funny because
100%.
the Starship Troopers horde shooter just came out on PC at least. You can
Helldivers team out there is like, damn it, we got it announced now.
we gotta ride the hype.
I am interested to see how they can translate what made the first game kind of chaotic in third person. because I feel like a lot of that chaos worked really, really well in the top down. Because I feel like I feel like in a way it's kind of harder to control your fire that way because you don't have as many axes to work with. So I'm interested to see how they're going to translate the chaos.
Big
Yeah.
enemies.
If they just go the EDF route, I think it'll be fine. I think large enemies and the trouble of weapons have explosions, I think make enough difficulties.
I mean, it almost reminds me of, Risk of Rain to Risk of Rain 2. If you remember,
Yeah.
Risk of Rain 1 was a 2D platformer, and I don't think it was multiplayer from what I remember. And then
It was.
What?
was it? I actually don't remember anymore. But I mean, going from a 2D like pixel art platformer to a, fully 3D, it was a crazy jump, but it worked really, really well for that. So I hope we get a similar kind of leap in quality.
Yeah, that would be good to see. All right, moving on to Immortals of Avium. We've seen this game a few times now. It's the first-person shooter, but it's all magic instead of guns. It looks like a first-person shooter. Like, I don't know what we
But
were
with
expecting.
magic instead of guns.
I have.
Oh.
Go ahead, sorry.
It's even with all like the what should be interesting magical effects, it feels so generic.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Super interested in this. I agree with you, Alex, that the way that the magic looks like it's done in gameplay really just looks like weapon selection instead of actually having like a cool effect. Like when I imagine a magic first-person shooter, I imagine something more akin to Ghostwire Tokyo, of like you have the crazy hand motions that have really unique effects and whatnot. And it's not to say Ghostwire Tokyo did it perfectly. It really didn't, but I think it was closer to what I would want, at least visually. But they could also be holding something back. Like it's totally possible.
I'm like tentative and a little hopeful for this. I do agree though that so far from what we've seen, it's looked a little generic. I'm by no means a pre-order or anything for me, but I'm hopeful that this does come out to be cool. And even if it is a little bit generic, hopefully it's still fun and like the rest of the aesthetics and plot and everything carry it.
Not every game presents well, and sometimes you just have to get your hands on it, and you can. And then after that, you're like, okay, I get what they're going for here, and it's working well. It just doesn't always present well. So this could be that. It's hard to say. But I'm with the rest of you where it's like I think like a first person magic shooter is kind of interesting, but there's not a lot of like wow moments going on. There are a lot of mechanics or systems that are sticking out.
I do love the shot they put in of you basically like ODST dropping, but with magic into the level. That seemed really cool. I like that concept. I think it has a lot of, from what they're showing, it has a lot of like set piece moments, and it has the tone that I think from a game that looks like it's trying to be a B movie plot. I think it has gotten the B movie tone correct. If it actually is trying to be that. That's the thing. I don't know if the developers or the writers are fully aware of what the game sounds like, because
I am also
it really sounds like a B movie.
I will say too that even if this is a generic first-person shooter with a magic coat of paint slapped on it, I still think that could be kind of fun in its own right.
Yeah.
You know what else kind of air it gives off? Like like when the rebooted DMC was making fun of the older games.
Ooh.
Yeah. I kind of get what you're saying there. I don't know that it's going to be... I don't think this has the problem that game had of like actively stomping on the grave of a really good franchise.
Yeah.
That thankfully has been revived, but like that was insulting. This I think feels a lot more benign in terms of maybe the tone is a little off base of what people in modern era first person like single player game fan bases actually want. I don't care really. Like this is for a first person shooter. If the game is fun, it's gonna be good. Like I think that really is what it comes down to. And if the campaign that's at play here can be like somewhere close at all to the level of something like Doom or Doom Eternal, I think we'll be looking at something that's very good in terms of just playing it. But they haven't really talked that much about like what the campaign structure is and how it's going to function. I think thankfully they haven't shown anything that's like crazy live servicey. They haven't shown anything that's leading me to think this is going to be like a grind fest game.
I have literally no basis for this. I'm just scared that the mission structure might end up being like Anthem.
I agree with you. That's my biggest worry, is that this will play like Anthem, which is a bizarre thing to say because nothing they've shown looks anything close to that, right? I want to make this very clear.
It's a looming fear.
This is based on nothing. Just like, it is Electronic Arts, though.
It's like seeing like the negative image or reflection of something, just like something doesn't sit well with me in this.
There are ripples in the water.
That is something that I wanted to mention, and I think I've already said this when we talked about this game last time, but I'm going to reiterate it again. It's important to note that this isn't like published by... It is published by EA, but it's not from one of their like major studios. This is their originals program, which means they just kind of throw money at smaller projects, and they don't really, get their hands dirty with it at all. That's where It Takes Two came from, which is a great, fantastic game of the year for me. So it's important to note that this isn't going to be an EA game in the sense that they're not really getting their...
part of why I'm concerned, because I think EA is marketing it like it's an EA game.
Well, I think that's where the confusion's coming in.
Exactly.
It's an EA original.
So I think EA's marketing here has maybe been putting expectations at a level that the game may not be equipped to handle.
And I wonder if that's because they looked at the game, they looked at the footage they could use for a trailer, and they're like, oh, we could make this look like a bigger budget, like EA project. Like, it could pass off as that.
Definitely is like a AA game, but kind of looks like a AAA game the way they're marketing it.
Yeah, it's like I feel like it's on that line between like AA and AAA. It's like kind of approaching that line.
Yeah, it's odd because Ascendant Studios, the studio that's actually making the game, is led by their creative director, used to be at Sledgehammer and some of Electronic Arts stuff, so experienced first-person shooter dev. A bunch of the employees are from Telltale, which is odd, of like the old Telltale that imploded, including some of the like art directors, which of course like Telltale's art direction was always good, so I'm not super concerned about that. But I think just it is a case of like I'm not sure what the experience in first-person shooters looks like here. And it's a 100-person dev team now, apparently. So that's a lot of people to balloon in a year.
Yeah.
So
makes me wonder how much emphasis they're going to be putting on like the story and plot in that game. Which could be good, but I'm just a lot of first-person shooters nowadays put like zero emphasis at all on that. So
yeah, I do hope this runs or plays well though, because I think if it does, it could be really fun.
I'm almost hoping for this specifically. I'm almost hoping you said like Doom or Doom Eternal. I'm not even looking for that, because Doom and Doom Eternal has some like exploration for its level design. Even if you give me something kind of like a just a linear, almost like Call of Duty campaign with a lot of like set pieces and fun moments, I'm kind of looking forward to that too. That could be kind of fun, because I feel like I feel like that the industry almost is too afraid to do kind of more narrative shooters these days, and I would like to see those come back a little bit, because I kind of miss it.
I would love that. I think my concern with saying I want a Call of Duty campaign is Call of Duty campaigns are traditionally bundled with a very solid multiplayer or zombies offering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is still a $70 game. It's still a full price game. So I expect there to be an answer to that. Like, is this going to be a longer campaign? Is it going to be a lot more cinematic? Is it going to be a lot more like gameplay? Or is it going to have some like Diablo style in-game system where you're doing a loot grind or something? Which I'm down for whatever they choose to do, but I don't think they've made it clear which one they're going for. And
they just kind of show they show bits of combat.
So
they show bits of combat and some of the set pieces, but like you said, like we don't really understand how the structure of this is going to work. This could be, for all we know, this could be an open world game. That's how little information that we have.
It does say discover, upgrade, and craft craft hundreds of pieces of magical gear to synergize your playstyle, which to me is a line of like
any game in 2023.
Any game in 2023, that to me says action RPG. Like that's the action RPG genre exists based on like that type of gear grind. So I do really wonder if they're going to aim for something like that. But if they are, nothing that they've shown has led me to believe that. So
I almost wonder if it'll be a bit more akin to like Borderlands then or something.
That'd be really fun. I'd be down for like a magic themed Borderlands.
Also, are we? Well, that does exist, but
yeah,
yeah, but okay, I played a lot of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I had a good time with that game.
Yeah, that game's great.
I may have missed this in some of the announcements on this game and whatnot. Do we know? Is it like what's? Are they trying to make this like multiplayer, or is it
no multiplayer
trying
is ever
to focus?
shown, so
okay,
yeah, I think multiplayer is likely not in the equation for this.
Okay,
all right. Moving on, we'll talk about Immortals more, I think, as we go on, because both Wyatt and I are very interested in any new first-person things that come out, so very curious about it. Speaking of other first-person games, Ghost Runner 2 is our next one up, and this is a one that, like, the trailer for this came out swinging, in my opinion. Like, this was this was an impressive trailer. I think Ghost Runner, the original, is a way more impressive game than anyone thought it was going to be when it was first shown off, because it just kind of dropped and then was all of a sudden like phenomenal art direction, super cool mechanics, and just had an actual story.
What kind of mechanic stuff did you see? Because I didn't see much more than like stuff from the regular game.
I mean, the bike.
The bike's the big thing.
Oh, I didn't see that at all.
The first half of the trailer is a motorcycle.
It's driving. He's driving a motorcycle down the side of a tower. Super cool.
Yeah, so there is definitely what looks like some like endless runnery motorcycle moments, and honestly, I'm okay if that's the only new thing, because Ghost Runner 1 was really very good. So, yeah, I'm happy to play this.
Looks great too, visually.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, I don't even know if I'm gonna stay here. It looks cool as hell.
Yep, I think it just looked really good, and it had a lot of gameplay in this trailer, which I think is a good way to showcase this game. All right,
any way to showcase a game is always better with gameplay.
Yeah, just anything to let us know like what is this going to feel like at all. Yeah, next we saw Phantom Blade Zero. So Phantom Blade Zero is a thing that is not. I think it looks like a Souls-like. It looks like a lot of other things. We've been told that it isn't any of those, really. Though it will have some like Souls-like mechanics. The interesting thing here is the company behind this game, S-Game, is a mobile game development company that is moving to full like AAA development. So they made a mobile game called Phantom Blade Executioners, which is the like original version of this. And it's a wild thing. It's something that is, I think, still being tested, so it's not even fully out, but yeah, it looks pretty crazy. The big like claim to fame that they have is that they have some weird fluid action system that is supposed to be being adapted for this console version that is what makes the combat look so smooth.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like looking at the gameplay now, and I wasn't really into it too much at first. I missed this one day of the PlayStation Showcase. But,
they really like showing off motion blur.
Yeah, that too. But the combat does look like it could be pretty smooth. I'm not sure how it feels yet, but
yeah, because it's clear to tell. I think a lot like we've talked a lot about the Hellblade 2 trailer. This reminds me of that, and that I can't really get this to look like gameplay to me. Like it is clear that it is mimicking gameplay, and there's a couple of scenes here that I think do legitimately look like gameplay, but a number of other ones that don't. Yeah.
And another thing that's running through my head too. I mean, Ryan and I were watching the live stream together while the combat was happening, and it was these super cool animations. Like, wow, this looks great. And then I had a sudden flashback to when they were showing off Forspoken, whatever that game's called. Too. And I was like, wow, this combat looks really cool.
All right, show me the UI.
and that's what I clung to throughout the entire like leading up to the release of that game. I clung to, the writing looks kind of obnoxious, but the combat looks cool. And then the game came out and the combat wasn't cool.
And the
terrible.
writing was very obnoxious.
And the writing was very obnoxious. And so I
Yeah.
had a flashback to that where I was like, oh, hold on.
Having a flashback to Forspoken must feel like having a stroke.
I will say, I think this is one of the
Forspoken.
games that I'm actually most excited for, just because it's new. We didn't know anything about this, and the way that this was shown off was really impressive to me. Of like, this is a really cool way to come out swinging to show a game for the first time.
Especially as a mobile developer.
A developer that hasn't done this before. Like, I think this shows a lot of confidence. It feels a lot like the Black Myth Wukong trailer to me. That was like super impressive, and that may mean that this game's really far out, but I'm still gonna think about it occasionally and be like, yeah, when Black Myth Wukong is actually headed out, I'm super interested in what it looks like. And the story seemed cool. There was this whole deal about like, you've got 66 days to live, which was very funny, but also, I don't know, that's a fun premise that for whatever is going on, you gotta like go get your heart back or something. Isn't he?
The enemy design looked really cool too. Just a lot of the character design in general was just super interesting to look at visually.
Yeah, I agree. I was
I'm
a
worried
little
about
bit.
some of them being too busy.
I was a little bit worried that the environments were beginning to look a little. I think I heard you guys once refer to it as Brown Town.
Yes.
This term it was gray, but
Gray.
I was a little bit concerned that it all looked sort of like washed out, ashy. But I think that the character designs looked really cool. Combat looked like it could be really good. Honestly, an impressive showing from a mobile developer. Like that's something that I would normally be a little wary of. Not necessarily discount them, but just wary of. And this looks like, honestly, like a pretty good.
At least it was a good showing.
Grabs my interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, our next game here was Sword of the Sea, which is from a number of developers from Abzu and The Pathless. There's a few, I think, devs on that team that used to work on Journey, so
very familiar art style.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I mean, this looks excellent. I think there's very little.
It looks like Tony Hawk meets Journey.
Yeah, it really is taking the Journey dune skating all the way to the top.
I love riding a sword.
Anything that these guys work on, I'm going to be immediately interested in. But there's this little thing in the back of my head that keeps bothering me, and it's called The Pathless. Because I think I've told this story before. Pathless is probably one of my biggest, like, disappointment, kind of, but just like broken heart. Because I was so sold on that game for the first, like, 2 hours. And then the first boss fight happened, and it kind of deflated a lot of my excitement. But like I said, regardless of that, I think anything that this studio works on, anything that these people work on, I'm down, because Journey's a masterpiece. And
I was gonna say, from the look of this, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about boss fights.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no indication here of a boss fight.
No,
but
I guess I didn't mean boss fight specifically, but it was one thing that just kind of deflated a lot of the game for me. And I hope this doesn't have that one thing. So far, this looks rad.
Yeah, and I would say Pathless was generally received pretty well, to my knowledge, so it might be just a thing that it didn't hit with you. But yeah, Pathless is sitting at a lot of good reviews, so maybe that is just not reflective of... Just reflective of them doing a different type of game and not really sticking to the style of something like Abzu.
And I also think a lot of that comes from my own personal bias towards boss fights that I have talked about before. I think that's
wild that you don't like boss fights still.
You have talked about that.
You can't. I'm not. It's not a blanket statement. All boss fights. I've talked about boss fights that I enjoy before.
Not all boss.
I can't wait to watch you play Armored Core. I'm going to be tuning in live.
It had the very standard, like, run around the boss in a circle while he attacks you, and then wait for an opening where you can attack it for 2 seconds, and then rinse and repeat 2 more times. That I'm just not. That doesn't interest me that much.
All right.
Anyway,
I think aside from that, though, Sword of the Sea, very convincing reveal. I think there's very little here that is indication of any kind of problem. So yeah, I think this is probably going to be great. Maybe it'll be really bad and prove us different, or prove us wrong. Who knows?
I really hope not.
I do really hope not, too. And notably, this is one of the games that likely is PlayStation exclusive. There's no... it's not on the graphic for that. Immortals of Aveum is coming to Xbox and PC. All right, Talos Principle 2 is a follow-up to Talos Principle. I don't know if anyone here has played Talos Principle aside from me. You have?
Yeah. Loved it. Very fun puzzles. Really, really tricky. Like that brought back a level of brain teasing that I had not had in a very long time.
It is a lot like... for those who haven't played Talos Principle, it's a puzzle game along the veins of something like The Witness, I think is probably the closest type of puzzle game. It's not really like...
Yeah, because there's a hub where to sort of maneuver around
things, but it doesn't really play at all like anything like Portal. But yeah, first-person puzzle game that is very good and lengthy. Like, it is not a short game. Talos Principle 2 looks like it's going to follow that. This is a hard one, though, because I think this trailer, for most of it, we just had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, I had no idea this was the Talos Principle 2 until, it showed up at the end. It was like, that tracks art style-wise, but this is an insanely different
It's a lot of
type
shots of, like, a landscape, and there are multiple environments. It's like a big pyramid, but then there's also a dome city.
There's a series of statues.
Which, Ryan, to be fair, that fits what we did in the last game because of all the different environments.
Yeah, but I think it's still, like, it looks so ambitious that I don't go to puzzle game as a first thing. Which I think means when we get to the Talos Principle logo, I'm just really confused.
So, it looked like it could be a free climbing simulator until I saw the.
This could have been literally anything. Like, this could have been a Cyberpunk DLC or something for all we knew.
Mentioning those environments though, they look fantastic. Oh my god, I was
gorgeous.
Smitten by the shot of the crow, and there's all of like the statues that are like holding up these different buildings and stuff. So cool.
Yep, it's also multi-platform. Talos Principle is coming to everything, aside from probably the Switch, I would imagine. And yeah, I'm excited for this. It's going out sometime this year, supposedly. So I want to see some gameplay just to know if this like plays like the first one. I assume it is going to. So.
I can't imagine major changes.
I'm hopeful.
A quick aside for games, like announced here, can we still vote on those if they're coming out in 2023 for the?
That's exactly what you should do. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah. Because I still have a counterpick to use, and
that's why we left slots.
I gotta lay down some money for foam stars.
We'll get to foam stars real soon.
We'll get there.
All right, our next game is Neva, who's from the developers of Grease. Grease is great. It's a very short but very good platformer, artsy adventure game. Had a good time with it. I think Neva the art style's beautiful. We don't really know much else about it.
That's enough to sell me on it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna repeat what I said to Ryan while we were watching the live stream initially. I don't know what I'm looking at, but whatever it is, I'm sold.
Yeah, like this is definitely one of those developers. You see the art for one of their games, and you're just like, all right, I'm in. Give it to me at some point, and I'll play it.
The money is yours.
Yeah.
It's coming out in 2024, so it's a bit further away than a lot of other stuff we've seen. It just looked really good. It reminded me a lot of classic like Disney stories from what the little bit that they showed. It was like mother animal passing away, and there you have like you're taking care of her child. As this other character with like a sword. So, yeah, it looks cool. I'm really interested to see what this is going to play like.
I got Nausicaa vibes.
Are you guys familiar with the animation studio Cartoon Saloon? They did Wolfwalkers and what else?
The Wolfwalkers sounds familiar. I didn't know it was done by Cartoon Saloon.
It's not Song of the Sea, Secret of the Kells, The Breadwinner. Those are the other stuff they've done. This doesn't really look like that, but for some reason kind of reminded me of some of their style.
I was about... Right, they did a segment for Star Wars Visions. Star Wars.
Yeah, I haven't seen
season 2. But... They did the first episode.
Oh, it's the first... All right, well, I know what I'm doing tomorrow.
That was great. That was one of my favorite segments.
Yeah. The big thing I think I'm curious about with this is Grease was a pretty relaxed game, all things considered. It had a relatively heavy story, but it was not there was no moment of gameplay in Greece where I was like sweating. This does have a character with a sword, so I'm wondering if there's going to be combat in this at all.
It definitely insinuates combat through.
It looks like that might be something here, so I'm curious to see how that will play. Show it. All right. Moving past Neva to Foam Stars, baby.
Star of the show. Star of the show.
You're a bubble blowing baby.
Foam Star of the show.
Neva is also multi-platform. It is not a Sony exclusive.
This is the only thing that I saw in this whole thing that I was not hopeful for. And I feel a little bit bad for saying that, but
I'm just confused about this game because this is just Splatoon. Like,
haven't you ever wanted to be a foam star, Alex? Haven't you ever wanted to be a foam star?
I played Splatoon, so
you have been a foam star then.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you're in for.
Oh, sorry, wait, that's paint, not foam.
Why be both a kid and a squid when you could be a foam star?
It's also real. Can I just say it takes immense guts to say, hey, we're gonna come out with a Splatoon rival when Splatoon 3 has been received as well as it has, or just the Splatoon series in general has been received as well as it has, and then also, Square Enix is just like, we got that.
This is an exclusive, which is the bizarre thing. This is an exclusive to PlayStation game.
Of course it is.
This is
live service. You gotta get those live service titles.
Among the ilk of God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn, Foam Stars rises supreme.
Also, did we confirm whether the music is done by the same people that did the music for Persona 5?
I don't think
we confirmed, because it sounded very similar. Very similar.
I don't think they would.
It's a really bizarre trailer too. I'm watching it again here.
Yeah, it's weird. It starts out with like the cinematic of a bunch of colorful characters, which immediately looks like a free-to-play game.
And then it becomes colorful, and then they show gameplay, and the gameplay just looks so much worse in comparison.
Well, here's the problem. I think the problem is the foam. When there's a ton of foam going on screen, it almost becomes like incomprehensible in terms of like, where can I walk? Like what's happening? It's like the depth perception is kind of weird on it. It just, I think foam was the wrong choice.
I think they accidentally showed off a VFX demo.
Well, it's also that the trailer shows them with these guns that are like shooting big streams of foam that look pretty cool, and then you see the gameplay and they're literally shooting like bubble JPEGs at the ground.
It just, I don't know. I can see some of the ideas, like, oh, we're going to use foam because it's going to be like Splatoon, but it's going to have like a another layer to it. You can kind of build up, but it just doesn't. It doesn't look that. None of what I saw looked good, fun. I don't know.
I don't know what's going on.
I have a weird. The character models look like plastic. They look like action figures. I don't know how to describe it, but it was kind of off-putting in comparison to like
it looked like
the environment art. It looked weird to me.
Like a late PS3, early PS4 game.
Yeah, I don't know about this
for this to be what is probably going to end up being like PlayStation 5 exclusive. That doesn't look like it's really taking advantage of that.
Well, also, like I'm trying to think about this of like, okay, let's say Splatoon isn't a thing. Would we be able to know what was going on here if we didn't have the context of like, oh yeah, this is probably just Splatoon? Like, would we be able to tell?
I'm still not even sure. Is it really Splatoon? I don't even know. I'm assuming it's Splatoon, but the trailer didn't show me like any.
That's what I'm saying. Is that you have that reference of like, oh, it kind of looks like Splatoon. But if we didn't have that reference, would any of this be like comprehensible?
Shooting foam.
Yeah. I don't know. Foam Stars is bizarre to me. I probably, assuming this is not a full price game, I will probably try it just out of morbid curiosity.
Hey, if I hear it's good, I'll give it a go. But like, I'm just not expecting it to be good from what they showed here.
I just think so much of what I'm looking at here, like the character design in Splatoon works because Splatoon is a game about squid kids in color, and everything still has like a really similar art style and looks coherent.
Well, it's also very.
There is no coherency here between like golden minigun man and pink like bubblegum hair color. Like it just doesn't look consistent.
In Splatoon, you have that like I want to say like a lot of the cosmetics are very like 90s fashion inspired.
Yeah,
and it has that kind of like unifying theme to a lot of the clothing. Like you said, this has
fashion. Like it already has
streetwear,
90s skater kid fashion. This has I don't know what this is.
This is nonsense. This is nonsense fashion, an amalgam of everything, and I think it's just missing maybe the point a little bit.
It also looks like there's almost too much going on screen. Like, I can't read what's happening.
Also, pink hair lady at the end who pops the bubble looks like she has like a Nerf Halo needler.
Yeah, I was really...
It's bothering me.
Except I think there is a Nerf Halo needler that looks better.
There is, yeah. That looks way cooler. I don't know about this game.
I've also seen some legitimately exactly the same as Splatoon abilities going off in this.
Oh, there's tons. Like all the like special abilities they use, I can look at 1-to-1 and go, "That's this from Splatoon."
Yeah.
Like
I almost can't believe this is like Square Enix. I mean, I can, considering some of the work they've put out recently, but like it looks like if this came and at the beginning or end of the trailer it said some like kind of nobody AA studio,
wait,
I'd
guys,
be like, oh, that makes sense.
I don't think this is just like a foam Splatoon clone. I think this is a foam Splatoon clone that's a hero shooter.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
It's
I
also
didn't see the full
4v4
trailer until now.
Party
this
game.
is
like
party game.
Party game.
I can see this as a party game.
It's built as a 4v4 party shooter. Like I don't know what that means at this point, because I can't imagine you can play this split screen on one console. That has kind of died in the zeitgeist of shooter game development. So
also, what is already so hard to read in this trailer would be awful divided up into 4 quarters of a screen.
Yeah, like this doesn't seem like a good idea to me. Maybe I'll be wrong, and you know what? I will happily eat some foam.
I'd be glad to be wrong. I don't want games to be bad.
Yeah, I never root for games to be bad, but this is just... I
ready.
think this just looks like there's no point to it.
I'm ready for the Foam Star party.
We'll have a Foam Star party when it comes out. We'll have a foam themed episode, all sorts of foam, and we can feel like foam stars without playing foam stars. Okay, let's talk about the Plucky Squire.
Please, can we? I'm actually very looking forward to this. This looks adorable.
Yeah, it's looked adorable every time they've shown it.
Have they shown this before?
Yeah, Plucky Squire's been at a few showcases in the past. We saw it, I want to say it at one of the Game Award shows a while back, but it's been a while since we last saw it. It
well,
still looks very good.
I didn't used to be on the podcast, and so I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, so you're not force-fed the news by me like the rest of these three goobers that are typically on the show. Yeah.
Become made aware.
Foam Stars looks great was about to come out of my mouth, and I was really gonna regret that. Plucky Squire looks great.
We have it on recording. We have him. We got it, boys.
Just that line and throw it back at me in a year, and I'll really hate you. Plucky Squire looks very good. You are a little adventuring kid, 2D Legend of Zelda style, who then pops out of the page and runs around in a toy-filled room.
And I think they haven't talked about like other it looks like there's other playable characters as well. They were introducing these other characters, which is kind of interesting. I don't think they talked about that before. So that'll be... I'm always a fan of like hot swapping between characters that have different abilities, a la...
Yeah, I don't know if it was other playable characters or that you had like partner characters that were wandering around.
This definitely feels like...
any shots where the main character isn't also in the shot, so I don't know if it's just that they're party members or if they're actually characters you can swap to.
This doesn't look like it from this trailer, but it looks like a kind of game that may work well as multiplayer as well.
Yeah,
just a little split.
That'd be fun. I feel like if it had co-op though, they would have said
they would have shown it. I think
Yeah.
But who knows? If this does well enough, I could see a sequel introducing like a second player or something. Just in terms of gameplay.
Yeah. It almost reminds me of, has anyone ever played Evoland?
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of Evoland a little bit. Because you go from like the children's like story time book, and then you kind of go from that into like the 3D world and stuff. And it kind of reminds me of that a little bit. It seems like they're gonna have some really interesting sort of level design combining the 2D and the 3D, which I feel like at least the first Evoland, which I feel like the first Evoland didn't really have that much. So I'm interested to see how they're gonna.
It reminds me a lot of both Evoland and Link to the Past.
I'm still trying to 100% Evoland 2, but RNG keeps screwing me over on the card games.
Yeah, hate to see it.
All right,
constantly.
Skill issue.
Skill problem. Yeah, I think Plucky Squire looks great. I don't think anyone here is going to disagree with that.
Nope. Also, it's published by Devolver Digital, which is always a good sign.
So it's going to be
a mark of quality. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, Plucky Squire coming out sometime this year. We don't know exactly when. Next up on our list, also Plucky Squire is cross-platform, not a PlayStation exclusive. Same with Ghost Runner 2. I don't know if we talked about it with Ghost Runner 2, but that is also on multiple things. Teardown, a PC game that has been out for a while. The big gimmick of Teardown is it's a heist game with incredibly destructible environments that are
and voxel
you get a bunch of tools.
Style.
Yeah, it's voxel style because all the voxels are physics simulated. So you can actually like break a hole in a building by cutting out part of the wall. It's very cool.
Is it a heist game? I thought different missions had different parameters.
It starts out as you're just a demolitions person or like a breakdown person, but it gets into heist things.
Cool. It is a heist.
Because there's a story. There's a story to it.
And I mean, it looks good on PC, and I bet the PS5 will run it great.
Yeah, that's my biggest hang up with this. So Teardown is a game that can run on a lot of hardware, but it can't run well on basically anything beyond. There is a way that the game like handles its visuals that allows it to run pretty well because of how simulated everything is. You can kind of reduce the resolution to get a lot of performance back. So most of the game you play at like 75% resolution scaling so that it can run well. That on console, I don't know how well that will work just because it's generally when you see footage of this game, it is people with incredibly powerful PCs running it. So I'm hoping that the footage that they showed is representative of how it plays on console and not on PC.
At least with console, they are able to sort of optimize it a little bit better. So hopefully that has happened.
Yeah, this is cross-platform. There's another big thing with Teardown that is the modding scene. So I do wonder if we're gonna get any of the mod stuff on consoles, just because a lot of that is like completely untested in terms of like actually being.
Could even just sort of have a level editor built in. I don't know how the game already.
Yeah, I hope it does have a level editor built in. There is a level editor for it that is relatively good.
Great.
Yeah, I hope a lot of the user-created content makes it, because there's tons of really cool stuff in the PC version. Of like, you can load up into remakes of a lot of like Grand Theft Auto areas, and then you have like fully destructible things. There's people that have just like remade fully functional planes, so you can like walk around a Boeing 737
and break open the wall
and do a bunch of crazy stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool user created content here. I hope some of that makes its way over to consoles eventually. Otherwise, good game on its own. The heist story is good if you're expecting a cool heist story. Don't necessarily go into it expecting a destruction sandbox the whole time, because it really isn't. Like, the heist stuff is very deliberate. Like, you have to be planning out. It's more puzzly than it is just destruction focused. So yeah, be aware of that if you're going into this blind. All right, next is the big one. This is the big drop that happened. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is being remade as Metal Gear Solid Delta, I want to say. Is the right way to say that. And it's coming out soon-ish. They didn't say a date, but I'd imagine in the next couple of years, or else they wouldn't have shown it this early.
There's
of years.
there's been quite the hubbub online about this one.
Yep.
I understand why, because like it is one of my all-time favorite games. So like I get the scrutiny over it, but
Well, I think the
I don't know,
main I think the main source of the hubbub is that Konami internally hasn't developed a game, like an actual video game, in a really long
Yes.
time. And their first project back is a universally beloved game made by a very specific creator.
Yeah, and also a game
I
that
do
generally
think it's
holds
true.
up pretty well, I would say.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have an uphill battle here to get it right. I do hope that they are actually like using some of the stuff left behind for Metal Gear Solid 5 and adapting that into it, because I think that's much better than starting from scratch.
I would like to mention, by the way, this trailer does not make it very obvious what you're looking at first, because it's just a lot of footage of jungles and stuff. I said while this was
Yeah.
streaming, I said this is the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake that people were talking about, and I nailed it.
because you'd recognize that clearly Russian environment anywhere.
Well, I saw the jungle. I heard that there was possibly a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake." Because it's such a big game, they want to have a big build up. And I was like,
Yep.
they're gonna reveal Snake, and yep, there it is.
I mean,
and I
there's
called
another
it, and I was
jungle
very
later in
proud of
this thing
myself.
too.
I called it, and I was very proud of
Yeah,
myself.
I was expecting
Just
a browner jungle, I think, because the original game is a little bit more like muted in terms of color palette than this looked. So I immediately jumped to, like, they were showing a bunch of animals, and I should have understood the tree frog. That's on me. I should have gotten the tree frog reference. Didn't get it. So instead, I was looking at all the animals and was like, oh, maybe this is like a Jurassic Park thing, because you have like the shot of the alligator jumping up, and it was kind of looked like something like that. Because I was like, even after we saw the big electric fence, I was not convinced. And then Wyatt directly called out exactly what was going to happen as the camera zoomed in, and he was like, it's going to zoom into that corner, and Snake is going to rise up, and what happened with that? So,
yep, that was one of two awesome guesses that I had. My second one was Marathon, and I was like, yo, is this Marathon?
Marathon would happen in a forest?
I was at work when this was
anyway.
Airing. It came out, I think, like 4 to 5 Eastern or 4 to 5:30 or something like that.
Yeah.
And like this trailer, this announcement came out, and like both my like internal work messaging system and like my Discord like exploded. I'm like, what? Metal Gear? And I'm like, it was like
Metal Gear.
Metal Gear. It can't be. So like, I knew that some of the folks that I work with are Metal Gear fans. So at first I was like, oh, they're just talking about Metal Gear, and I was like, oh no, wait, they're talking about more Metal Gear.
Yeah, and there's also a few other weird things with this. So we got a confirmation that David Hayter's back as Snake, which people were very excited about, because everyone loves David Hayter's work in the original Metal Gear Solid games, before he was replaced by Keith Sutherland in the newest Ground Zeroes and 5. So he's back, but the reason he's back is actually they're reusing all the voice lines from the original game.
Oh.
They're not re-recording. And I don't know if that means they're not re-recording anything, or they're just using the original voice lines in their entirety, and that's it.
I don't necessarily hate that, because it is good, but it does seem odd.
I think it's a good thing in terms of just like keeping accurate to it, but at the same time, Metal Gear Solid 3 is a PS2 game with a lot of like audio compression. So
I'm concerned.
I'm hoping
they're
they
going to have the
high quality versions of this.
Well, that's the thing, is that, I mean, when they recorded the lines originally, I'm assuming they used really good microphones and then had to compress it after the fact. So as long as they have those original files...
I hope they have the originals, but this is Konami, who had an intense falling out with Kojima.
What if anyone have the equivalent of the sharpen image filter on this?
Okay, so here's a question. Has anyone played the Metal Gear Solid 3 Pachinko machine? How does the audio sound?
Oh, that's going to be a good benchmark.
Yeah, that's a good benchmark. Who knows?
I guarantee it has some weird voice lines, and they probably didn't record new ones for that.
Yeah,
God.
I mean that's not like a big concern point for me, but it is just I think it is a note of what to expect with this. If it's probably going to be a near 1-to-1 remake and not.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw some people and heard some concerns that they're gonna be like rewrite. It's not like Kojima's not involved. What's the plot gonna be like? Well, it sounds like they're not rewriting it at all. So
yeah, I think this is the better option between the two.
Yeah.
I hope this is good. I really hope they manage to adapt this well. I also hope that it isn't exactly 1-to-1, just because I think a lot of the level design in the original Snake Eater is very good, but it is also very good for the exact way that gameplay functions in the original Snake Eater. And we have just advanced so far beyond that in terms of what is expected of like a third-person stealth game. So I hope that they adjust levels and gameplay to fit modern stuff while still keeping all the voices and whatnot around.
Because that's the point of a remake.
Yeah, like don't stay exactly the same. Like make some changes, but just be careful.
There are very few games that like can just be made 20 years ago and then you can just make it 1-to-1 and it's totally fine. There are very, very few games that survive the passage.
You could probably do it with Snake Eater. It would just be weird.
I think that at minimum we're gonna have like say the levels are still the same. I think that it will remove some of the like barriers between level zones.
Yeah.
You know, if we're just walking in the jungle, this is not going to have 3 loading screens. In a long jungle, it's just going to be a long jungle.
I do wonder.
So it'll play smoother. And Snake Eater, the original, has an incredible amount of interactivity with objects and the environment and everything. And so I think we're at least going to be keeping that, if not adding more to that, just in terms of what we're able to do with technology interacting with the environment and whatnot.
I do wonder, why not just start with Metal Gear Solid 1? Why start with 3?
Because it's the best one.
But I mean, wouldn't a remake of 1 then almost be more like necessary in a way?
It's where the plot starts too, I guess. I mean, like
if you're introducing like, because part of the point of remakes like this is to introduce a new audience to that series, right? Then why wouldn't you start at 1 and go on from there?
Because Metal Gear Solid 3 is the most iconic.
I would argue that as much as Metal Gear Solid 1 is a good entry point and basically where the series started, I think that Snake Eater's plot is a bit more approachable for a brand new player. It's not building on Metal Gear 1 or 2 really, even though Metal Gear Solid was kind of meant to be a reboot.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think Metal Gear Solid 1 would have been just as good an entry point, but they're at least even.
I mean,
there's a lot of rumors floating around that the reason that they've changed the title to Delta is because the next plan for a remake, if this one is received well, is to redo either everything in chronological order instead of it being the way that the original games are presented in terms of like jumping around, re-releasing them in an order that is more telling a story generationally and actually like following the through line, which I think is super interesting. I'd be totally down for that because like we have the originals. They aren't going to be made worse by the existence of these remakes regardless. Like it's not like those games are invalidated. So I would be very open to them redoing the games that are earlier in the time frame, like after this one to redo. I would love to see like combine Metal Gear 1 and 2, like the actual Metal Gear NES games, into a game and have that be the next thing, and like an actual way to get that story that isn't just go play the NES games that aren't really that great anymore. So yeah, I am super curious on if they go that route, and I would love to see it. They just need to keep the infinite ammo bandana. So all right, that's Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta Snake Eater. Whoa-ho.
What a thrill.
Yeah.
When darkness and silence come alive.
This is a cross-platform one too. It's coming to everything, and yeah, I will absolutely be playing this the instant it comes out, even if it sucks, because it might. It's Konami, so it might. But yeah.
How would you? This might be the next game of the thing. How would you pronounce the last word of that?
Towers of Agaspa.
I'm
going to choose to say Agaspa. Oh. I don't know if that's correct at all. So.
I felt like I was having a Lemmy moment, where it's like Towers of... So Towers
of Agaspa is a... This is actually not the first time we've seen this game, so I do want to specify that. This is the first time we've seen it since the reveal trailer of early test footage over 4 years ago.
It looks really cool. I was getting sort of the impression that it looked like a love child between, oh my god, Shadow of the Colossus and Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think this looks very good, like just beautiful from a perspective here. But the vibe that I'm getting from this is more. This is going to me seems like they're aiming for a city builder of some type.
Really?
Yeah, because there's bits of like they're building houses on structure, so I'm almost thinking this looks like a settlement building game that is
that's really cool.
Third person survival mixed in.
I would absolutely be down for that, because just the aesthetic alone once again has me, because I'm a sucker for cool art and world building.
See, I always thought that would make a good combination of like you got yourself like a third person like survival action adventure type thing, and then all the resources you gain from that go into this other city builder element. And I feel like that's been done before in different forms, but not like this where it's
this is dedicated. Looks like it's committing to the idea, like that's the core thing in this game.
And the scope for this is insane. I mean, these environments look vast, and they're kind of insinuating that you can you can adventure around in those areas, but they got these giant flying whales.
Mm-hmm.
It's super cool. They look like the what are they called? The little
space whales.
Like light speed space whales from Star Wars. What are those? The Purgle.
I was thinking of the Purgle when I saw them. They were very pretty.
Okay. Man. Good to have you here, Alex. We did lose other Alex to a power outage, but if he gets back, he'll get back. But otherwise, we're gonna keep going. Towers
doesn't have to be that, Alex.
Yeah, there could only be one.
So, I'm inside his walls.
I have to think. I think this might be my game of the show, just in terms of like, what I'm interested in. Because we knew about the Metal Gear Solid remake beforehand; it had been so heavily rumored. This one, I think the gameplay that we were shown and everything has been good enough to me that I'm super curious about how this is actually going to be. It's clear there's some type of story going on here. It definitely has the like Breath of the Wild paraglider stuff. The original reveal trailer here had a lot more of a combat feeling to it, and I think we've maybe moved away from that now. Welcome back, Alex.
Thank you. My house lost power.
To being back to like less of a combat focus and more of a survival focus. But either way, I'm very happy with it. I do see there is a shot of a bow and arrow being used, so at least
is this cross-platform as well, or is this a PlayStation exclusive?
I believe it is.
Exclusive or cross-platform?
I don't know if it's on Xbox because it is not on the Xbox graphic, but it is on Steam currently. Like you can wishlist it on Steam, so I think that likely means it is multi-platform. Maybe just not on Xbox.
I mean, that has the potential to be such an addicting gameplay loop, though. I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm still playing Breath of the Wild obsessively, right? Or excuse me, Tears of the Kingdom obsessively right now. And if it kind of taps into that same kind of like vast open world adventure, ooh.
And the way that I really like this, so the Steam page does have some more details I'm going to read off here, just because I think we're all pretty interested in how this game actually plays. So the way that this game is constructed is you are on an island and you are constructing villages, customizing buildings, and watching your settlement be inhabited by more people. You grow things on the land to restore an ecosystem. So it is a game of like restoring an ecosystem, and you can visit your friends' islands to see their islands and hang out. So
Oh.
it has
Alright,
that
I'm
kind of
sold.
Animal Crossing twist to it of
I
like
was
you
about
go
to
visit
say,
your friend's
yeah.
Animal Crossing island, which I think is
this
great.
might be this might be game of the show for me. Then yeah, I was watching the wrong trailer for it, or the snippet that it showed in the IGN one didn't
Yeah, it wasn't the
go
full
well
trailer.
with this. Yeah,
This,
there's some
this
really
looks
cool
like,
stuff.
I don't know, Avatar, not like Blue People Avatar, almost Legend of Zelda, almost sounds like Animal Crossing. I don't know, looks cool.
Yeah, I hope it is good because this is notably the original team for this game was 6 people.
Oh,
4 years ago. So I don't know if this is still 6 people. I'd imagine if they've been picked up by Sony, they have a little bit more backing, and maybe are slightly larger, but I don't know that for sure. If they are 6 people, jaw-dropping. Like, incredible amount of work.
That's,
I mean,
that's an
even
insane amount of work.
just what we've seen in the trailer seems kind of jaw-dropping for 6 people.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
definitely on the Steam
Just an
page,
incredible
combat's
amount
been
of assets and
de-emphasized
stuff.
from what it was. So the original trailer for this way back when had like a gigantic Shadow of the Colossus looking thing with a sword and a shield.
Oh, you know what? I
Rumbling
think I remember
around.
that.
Yeah, it made the rounds on like Reddit and Twitter because it was a very cool looking thing. It was just called Towers then. There was no Towers of Agasaba or Agaspa. So Agaspa. Yeah, I'm in. I'm fully in. There was no date given for this, so hopefully it launches at some point. But it looks very good. Like, I'm super into this. I really want to get my hands on it because I think this would just be a great time.
I must protect that silly clown-nosed turtle.
It kind of, the way this is being pitched in their Steam page reminds me a lot of a game called Grow Song of the Evertree, which is a game where you like assemble a village and then you go on little expeditions to islands to like gather materials and do some other stuff. And there's like a bunch of platforming. Like, it's a great little indie game that I think it does this type of idea really well. And I spent a ton of time in that game. Like, it was fantastic. So I'm looking forward to any other game that takes ideas from it. All right. Next up, big one, Final Fantasy 16, baby. This would be my game of the show if we have not already seen so much of this that it's my game of everything right now. Like, we've seen a ton of
Yeah, I was kind of gonna say something similar. I was like, this looks really good, but like it didn't even really faze me because we've seen enough of it now that I was like, okay, looks like more of it. Cool.
I'm sold. The notable thing that I want to mention here is, so a bunch of people afterwards were like, it feels like we're being shown too much of this game, and then a bunch of people that have gotten like review code and whatnot for it replied and were like, you haven't even seen past like the first 6 hours. What does that mean? It's insane to think about.
Wow.
This one feels like a Final Fantasy kind of needs this win right now. I hope this is as good as it looks.
Sure. I mean, Final Fantasy as a brand has been in limbo for a little while just because, like, 14 and 7 Remake have been very well received and very good, but there's a bunch of weird mobile spin-offs, there's a bunch of weird things that have been dying in
I mean,
like, production.
15.
The whole Nova Crystallis thing didn't work out. Like,
how is Final Fantasy what was the not Final Fantasy Origins? What was the one where we
have to kill Chaos?
Oh, that is Origins. Final Fantasy Origins, Stranger of Paradise.
Oh, it is Origins. Stranger of Paradise. That's the rest of the subtitle.
That game is weird. It's an outlier too because it's not by Square Enix. It's by Team Ninja. But
I heard it was
I don't know.
good.
I've played it. It's pretty fun. It's definitely not a top tier game. Like, it is a goofy romp. It is not what I would consider like a great
we have
thing.
to kill Chaos. You don't understand.
We do have to kill Chaos.
We have to kill Chaos.
We have to kill Chaos. You know what that and Immortals of Avium have in common? Protagonist named Jack.
Oh my god.
Maybe that's where the vibe is coming from. The weird Immortals of Avium vibe is happening.
Sorry, has anyone mentioned Chaos in that trailer?
Plus, also, I mean,
No
the
chaos.
less I feel like the less said about Final Fantasy 15, the better. That gave me.
I mean, Final Fantasy 15 is again like to me that game is the
fine.
biggest moment of wasted potential that I basically ever played through. They were so close. The plot itself, like ignoring how it's presented in the game, is good. Like, if it's just the story, and just the story beats, And just all of that completely removed from any of the things that actually matter, like the gameplay and the presentation and the narrative in the game. Great Spark Notes. They just didn't show any of it.
If I read the Wikipedia article, I'd be interested.
Playing that game filled my heart with so much hatred. I just, like, the more time went on with that game,
the more I played it filled me with boredom.
I've 100%ed that game twice, by the way. Just so you know.
Ryan! Disgusting!
Solely because, and I would tell you the reason.
40% at that game.
It's because it has the armature thing. So that's the bit where you like summon weapons and do cool stuff with weapons. A like game about like a weapon mage is my biggest like wanted fantasy game ever. Like that is the combat style that I want the most. And warp striking in that game was very fun, enough to make me do.
You know what I will say?
The combat wasn't.
It's one of those. It's one of those games where you play it and your brain is like connecting the dots of like probably what they were going for. Like that happened to me in Biomutant, right? Biomutant, terrible video game. Probably shouldn't play it unless it's like on a deep sale or something.
Which it is very often. You can get that game.
Which it is very often. But like as I was playing it, my brain, while simultaneously being like, "What the hell is this?" was also like, "Oh wait, I see what they were trying to go for," and there's like a weird amount of enjoyment. But I mean,
it's that weird type of game, right? Where I think that's the reason is that like I don't actually think Final Fantasy 15 is as bad as a lot of people say it is. Like just from like a game design perspective, what I think the problem is that everyone can see so clearly how much better it could have been, and like all the missed promises from the game's development, and it's just like, well, we know what you wanted this game to be, and it's not that, and that's what we wanted, not what you gave us. So
didn't they even later like update it with like a whatever Game of the Year Ultimate?
Yes, so we're going to talk about that too.
PC edition.
So that's the other thing. I played both editions, so that's the reason I near 100% of this game twice. I did 100% it fully the first time because I was in high school when it came out. I didn't have a ton of money. You know, it's a high schooler. You can't buy that many games.
You're insane, right?
I had bought Final Fantasy 15, and I was going to get my enjoyment out of it as much as I needed to. So I played the entire thing there, and it was fine. Like I think that's how I would describe playing that game the first time, is just aggressively fine. Playing the Regal edition, or the Royal edition, which is the version that's out now, that has all the character DLCs put in. The sheer amount of heavy lifting that those character DLCs do to make the main storyline so much better helps a ton. Like it is way, way better with the newer version. And you can really, I think you start to see a lot more of like what they intended the original to be. And
didn't they flesh out the end of the game?
See, that's the version I played. I didn't play the original version. I played that other version, and I was like, I can't get this away from me. I want nothing to do with it.
It depends, because most of the game up until the end on those versions is largely the same. They didn't make a lot of changes until the ending. Did you get to the ending in that?
It's funny. I feel like it's such a fine line with those kind of games where like you can see what they're going for. If they're far enough away, for me, I have more like sympathy, and I can play it and I can be like, oh, this would have been really cool. But then there comes a point where you get so close to getting it right and you fall short, and then I just get frustrated.
No, that's
like you were almost
that is exactly the problem, right? It's right on the cusp of literally just change the gameplay a little bit and make it more tolerable, and you're good. Like you're good.
And change
just
give and
make Aranea
storytelling.
Whoever the other kid's sister be potential party members, and then there you go. You got a full party. You got everything you need for a JRPG to be really solid.
In comparison to like the polish level on a number of other Final Fantasy games too, it felt a little.
Oh yeah, no, it's busted as hell. It's bizarre because it's a game that like so much of what they tried did work, but so much of what they tried was just not what they should have been doing.
I'm really just kind of hoping that Final Fantasy 16 is what that game should have been.
Well, so that's the thing about 16. And yeah, the thing I wanted to specify again is that 15's Royal Edition did like fully redo the last act of the game to a degree that is astounding. Like, it made the city into an actual zone and not just a weird, randomly generated dungeony thing. It became a real, like, city laid out with everything, and you had, like, all the stuff inside of it, and there was a new town in there. And, like, they made it so much better in that final bit. It still isn't amazing. Like, it's still super weird that you time skip 10 years, 10, 20 years in the future right before the final boss, essentially, in the base game. It's bizarre. Yeah, super strange thing. Final Fantasy 16, I think, will avoid most of these issues because the Luminous team, which was the 15 team, was working on Forspoken. So they're not on this basically at all. The person heading it up is Naoki Yoshida, who is he's the big producer for this. The person who basically is known as single-handedly saving Final Fantasy 14 and rallying the team to like make a good game. So there's a lot of star power in terms of development behind 16 that was not behind 15. And that I would say none of the stuff we've been shown seems to be a negative thing. Like, nothing they've shown off has set off the warning bells so far.
Yeah.
So I'm really hopeful for it. I think this is going to probably be the best Final Fantasy that's released in recent years, but there's really nothing to compare it to because your only other option is 7 remake and Stranger of Paradise. That's it. And all the mobile games. Sorry, mobile games.
What do you mean? Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier isn't grasping your attention?
Why don't you even remember the title for that?
I remember Ever Crisis because I don't even know if Ever
Oh,
Crisis
I don't
is
remember
launched
that one.
yet. It's the one that's supposed to be like retelling the entirety of Seven's story in some weird way that, I don't know, it's been in limbo for ages. And yeah, not to say 7 Remake is bad. 7 Remake is, I think, a pretty great game, but, you know, it's a trilogy. The next games are probably going to be better, so...
Also, they redid Crisis Core, I think. I wasn't really following that one, though.
Oh, yeah, I've played that one. It's good.
Re-released it, at least?
It is good. It is
remake.
Less of a remake than Remake is, but still not a remake. It is pretty significant in terms of what it changes, but it's good. It's a fun game. Really good to play on Switch or Steam Deck. Very solid. But way more arcadey and like way less serious. And I would say like if you go in after playing Final Fantasy VII Remake and play that game, the tone is going to be absolute tonal whiplash because Crisis Core is goofy as hell. It's a very goofy game. All right. Yeah, 16. This is another trailer for 16. It looks fine. Not multi-platform. That's the other big thing. 16 is Sony exclusive. All right, Alan Wake 2. Yep. Wyatt, I know this is a big one for you.
Yeah, well, and not even because I'm like the biggest Alan Wake fan. I like the first game, but to be honest with you, I haven't even finished it because sometimes the gameplay can just be real rough.
Yeah,
so I'm
hoping it aged quite as well.
I do like Remedy. I like their combination of third-person shooter with weird paranormal stuff. I think it's just it's a fun combination, especially with just how they play with time in a lot of their games and how they kind of interpret that differently. I'm excited for an Alan Wake game that can have that has gameplay that doesn't infuriate me. I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Yeah, and
I do want to go back and finish the first one.
Most people who've played Control agree that it's a very well done game. So
yeah,
I think they've learned a lot from the original time. You also see the gameplay in this trailer is not from Alan Wake's perspective; it's from the perspective of the FBI agent who is pursuing some issue in this town. Yeah, I think this looks really cool. I'm in for survival horror now that I've played a ton more survival horror games. Resident Evil 4 has really done something to me that is probably unhealthy, but you know what? Means I'll enjoy Alan Wake now.
Plus, I'm interested, given how technology has evolved, how we can use light in a more interesting way than we did in the first game.
I agree. Yeah. I disconnected again for a second, so I don't know if Wyatt had said this while I was deeply confused. But like I feel I played Alan Wake a little bit when it came out, and at that point in my life, I was not a horror person whatsoever. I found the story very intriguing, but it was a little bit on the freaky side to me at that point.
That's fair.
So I did not get all the way through the game just because it wasn't really my thing, but the story was intriguing enough that it was like I was like fighting with it. But I came back to it not that long ago. Now that I am more of a horror fan, more of a survival horror fan with Resident Evil and whatnot, like you had said, Ryan, and I feel like the original Alan Wake is fine, but it really didn't quite age.
Yeah,
quite as
that's
gracefully as other
essentially
games. I mean,
that's
it was
essentially
what
what I
like an
said.
Xbox 360 game, so
Yeah.
like
That's
Actually-
essentially what I said. Where I just sometimes the gameplay just felt a little too janky for my taste. But but like you said, Ryan, I think they've learned a lot. Control felt really
I think
great.
that's probably the same problem as Evil Within. Of like, we've all heard Evil Within is very good. I think we all tried to play it for Game Pass Games Club and ran into the same issues of it just feels dated. Especially having played it after the recent Resident Evil remakes, it's just like it's hard to go back even if it wasn't dated at the time.
Oh boy, that camera was hard to work with.
Yeah. Look, 360 era game cameras were roughly not a good batch at all. They were also pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Wasn't this is just something funny that I think I remember. Wasn't the original Alan Wake an Xbox exclusive, and now Alan Wake 2 is a PlayStation exclusive?
This is not PlayStation exclusive.
It's not an exclusive.
Okay, it's not. Okay.
I'm just showing off here.
I am interested to see, because they not only mentioned Alan Wake in Control, they had an entire expansion that was Alan Wake themed with like Alan Wake as a character in it.
Part
and
of me
so I'm
almost
very
wonders if there's a Control DLC for Alan Wake.
Well, that's the thing. Are they going to do a DLC, or is it going to be like directly tied into this game, which could be kind of fun, if not a little confusing for people who haven't played Control? That'd be kind of fun, because I feel like there's a lot of potential there for those two worlds.
Yeah, I would like if they tie them in at least a little bit, even if it's not like in ways that are super major. I do think some tie-ins would be fun.
I think it could be interesting too if Alan Wake 2 maybe is on its own, but then they sort of have a Alan Wake 3 Control 2
combination.
I like
sequel
to
both. Yeah,
almost like what they did with
what we have with Spider-Man 2 with them, with both Miles and Peter being.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, it almost reminds me too. Remember, has anyone here seen Unbreakable? It's a M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yeah.
It's almost like what happened with that. They had Unbreakable, which was early 2000s, and then we had Split,
and then Glass.
And then Glass. It kind of reminds me of that, where it's like, oh, it was an Unbreakable sequel. What?
Yeah, sure, but is it that good?
Well, I'm not saying quality. I'm
saying
how
I like Unbreakable.
Together.
Don't get me wrong. It's just
all right. Well, let's move on to our next game. We'll probably talk again. A lot of these we'll talk about more when they are nearer to release and we see more stuff. So we'll leave super in-depth discussion to those when we have more gameplay to work off of. Assassin's Creed Mirage is our next game. This is another multi-plat game. It's set before Valhalla, which we're not going to spoil any Valhalla stuff because that game is ungodly long. And
I finished it.
Also,
I finished any of the recent.
Also, screw that. Also, screw that game. I'm the one who has completed it, and I never want to play it again.
I've still been having fun playing it. Like once a month, I'll go in and do like one story mission, and that seems like a good pace for it.
Well, Ryan, at that pace, you're not going to finish it in this century.
And I've accepted that, Wyatt. I've fully accepted that.
So I want to sidetrack.
You say you finish it, right? You said not spoiling it. Are there big story implications after Valhalla?
Well, okay. So, no, what I want to say is the main character of Mirage is Basim, who is a character in Valhalla.
Oh!
And who's like a pretty central character. Like, there's a lot of information
he's a side character,
you learn.
That seems very weird.
It is. So apparently the reason for that is that this was originally going to be a Valhalla DLC starring Basim, because people liked Basim. And now it's spun off into its whole their own game.
They do?
They do like Basim. Wyatt, I don't think you're the average Assassin's Creed enjoyer anymore.
That's fine.
I really like the Arab aesthetic. I might get it for that because I was enjoying the moment-to-moment gameplay of Odyssey. I didn't think it was an Assassin's Creed game. I thought it was a fun RPG, except for the empty bits in the open world.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this in comparison to the past couple of Assassin's Creed games. Though I played them a while after launch, and enjoyed them enough. But this one, I love the older Assassin's Creed games, and this looks like much more of a follow-up to the older games than it is.
You get a more dense city type feel, with this.
That's also the entire objective
more...
of Mirage in particular is to be a smaller, more focused Assassin's Creed game, which is what people have been asking for a long time. As much as people do, there are a lot of people that really enjoy the RPG style Assassin's Creed games. They, I think, have a very good point that they don't feel like an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah,
I think that we can have
just like
both,
how Breath of the Wild and
game...
Tears of the Kingdom aren't.
I think Alex is right about that.
I'm gonna say this too. They're saying, oh, we want it to be smaller, a little more focused. I distinctly remember them saying the same thing about Valhalla, and it is not.
I don't know. I think Valhalla is smaller. Odyssey is ludicrously large and just bloated.
Yeah, I would say Valhalla's maybe longer, but Odyssey
is
much bigger.
Longer?
Well, here's another thing I'm wondering.
Valhalla is
200 hours
so
into Odyssey.
hopefully smaller and more condensed and focused. Is it gonna be $70?
Probably.
That's fine. Well, I don't have a problem with that.
If we're getting a smaller open world, something that's more condensed, and I think that allows them to have a lot more detail in their open world and a lot more interesting use cases.
It's the word smaller is kind of loaded. It's not meant to be that this is less game for anything. It's more that, I mean, part of the hope is that it is less game.
Well, I think what we're asking for is
focus.
It is
it
is less expansive but more dense.
Yeah.
I think is the point.
I think that what I want out of this game, and I think that that's what they're going for here, is much more of a follow-up to the gameplay style we saw in Unity and in Syndicate. Now, I was kind of mixed on Syndicate, and Unity was rough at launch, but I think a lot of the gameplay ideas in Unity were interesting and where I really wanted to see the series go in the right direction. However, that game flopped mega hard, and so they took it in a different direction. And I'm hoping
I like Unity.
The reasons that Unity flopped are entirely separate from gameplay for the most part.
Yeah, I went back recently to play more Unity. I kind of want to play through it again.
I haven't
more of the multiplayer.
At some point.
I never got to play the multiplayer because all of my friends were like, "No, this game sucks."
I mean, if we're getting Assassin's Creed Unity, maybe if we ease up on the level gating that was in Unity a little bit, I think that would be probably about where most people would want,
Yeah. And I mean, so I do want to mention this because there was a significant portion of the internet, as always, I don't want to phrase this as a thing that's unique to this game, that had a huge backlash against what looked like, in a lot of words of people, just simpler gameplay and whatnot, and that this looks exactly like the old games. And that's for me, that made me want to scream at the rooftops. That's exactly what I want.
I don't dislike the newer games, but
I'm down to play Assassin's Creed 2 again.
They don't feel like Assassin's Creed games to me. In fact, I think that Odyssey would be served greatly by not being an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the point here is that the way that this trailer was directed and everything felt very similar to the older games. They directed it in the same way that they directed it felt really similar to me to the Brotherhood trailer, of how the Brotherhood trailer was focusing on a bunch of people closing in on a square, and you saw a bunch of different shots of how people were doing assassination moves and all sorts of stuff. So
this honestly, aesthetically too, could almost be a remake of Assassin's Creed 1.
Yeah, this really feels like an Assassin's Creed 1 styled thing, just with more color, because we've got a lot more tech to do that now, and people have realized that brown is the enemy all the time. So.
Also, there's some here in this trailer that I'm like, are they doing a Arkham City fear takedown? Just take down 4 guys in one move thing?
Kind of look like it. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that kind of thing be incorporated, because the regular combat in these games is not as fun as the stealth.
All right, let's move on from Assassin's Creed. We'll talk about it more at some point, I'm sure. It's out on October 12th, so coming up relatively soon. Moving on to Revenant Hill, which is a very, very cool-looking game from what we saw, but we also know very little about it.
Yeah,
it's from the makers of
Is this
Me or no?
Makers of You?
Is this the same people who did Night into the Woods, or does it just
That's the
Night in the
it's
Woods,
from the same makers of,
or does it just look the same? I'm not.
I think
it's
it
a
is.
very distinctive style, so I think
I
want to
say it is. Let me look up this developer to make sure.
I mean, that cat looks like
it's
that
by
cat,
the Glory
so.
Society. Is a worker co-op, I believe is the term. But they are not great at tracking. Yeah, from what I can find, it probably is, but it is the only news right now is about Revenant Hill.
Yeah, looks good from what we can see of it.
Yeah, it didn't give us a lot to
Night
go
in the
off
Woods
of.
is from Infinite Fall and Secret Lab.
Okay, so what this is, now I finally found their actual website. It is founded by 2 of the 3 people who were behind Night in the Woods.
Ah, okay.
So it is
probably
same
like
people, but
same art lead.
different studio. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks cool. I don't know what it's gonna play like, but I'm intrigued.
Cool aesthetic, cool music.
This was really, an aesthetic trailer that worked. I think it got the people that I wanted to get.
It says Rise Together at the end, so I almost like. Is it like a
workers'
city
rights
builder where you play as a cat?
I legitimately think this is a workers' rights game.
Hell yeah.
I'm all for it,
because they show like one shot that looks like a worker protest, and so I'm like, this feels like we're gonna be like a. My gut to me says that this game is gonna be about a revolution of some kind, and I'm down for a wacky game about a revolution. That the trailer is a cat running around.
Up next.
Yeah, I'm down for it.
Maybe.
All right. We'll talk about Dragon's Dogma 2 next. Revenant Hill, I believe,
Let's
is also going to be multi-platform. I don't want to confirm for sure, but it's not on the graphic, so who knows? But I don't think there was a thing that said this was exclusive. Our next game,
Dragon's Dogma
2. This is another multi-platform thing.
Let's go.
Wonderful.
Can't wait. This trailer is everything I wanted to see.
So excited.
It showed me we're back in Gransys. We're in the Dragon's Dogma world doing Dragon's Dogma things. Some of the cut stuff from the first game is back, so the beast races were cut from the first game just because they didn't have time for it, so it's exciting to see that they're back. We saw some magic and stuff that looked like Dragon's Dogma magic, and that's, I think, the single thing that I most wanted to get a confirmation of it existing. And it does.
And there's more crawling around beasts.
More crawling around things.
I hated Dragon's Dogma, but I am
you stupid idiot.
I am really hopeful that I'm gonna give it a go again. If this game comes out and looks good, I'm gonna give it a go again. And I hope that I like it this time, because like everything about Dragon's Dogma like is a selling point and looks good to me. Every time I played it, I couldn't stand basically any aspect of it.
That's bizarre, because I think most aspects of it are the things that get praised quite often.
Look, every single thing about it should sell me on it.
Ryan, I think that's probably the most like
that's the hottest take that I've ever heard.
I'm actually stunned.
That's why I was going to mention
I thought you were going to say like
all of you guys.
The story, you felt like it wasn't guiding you well, which is all very true. And
then you just that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing, was that I found the story to be extremely dull, and the companion characters to be even
Alex?
duller. I don't remember. I have like almost no memory of the game because I just found it so boring.
You gotta play Dragon's Dogma 2, and you gotta play Magic
in all
Archer.
honesty, I would give it a try again. Because I don't know if I got far enough in it to really get a good feel of it. Like, I remember the tutorial was kind of cool. A lot of it looked interesting to me. The story plot was
You gotta get the spell that lets you summon like 6 giant spires of ice from the ground to impale all of your enemies, and then you can talk to me.
Okay, I can give it.
I
can give it a try again.
So I've started Dragon's Dogma 2, and I haven't played it in a bit, but I was just going with like a heavy two-handed user. Should I switch to anything but that?
Okay.
Because I've
if
heard
you're
some
playing
negative stuff
Dragon's
about
Dogma,
two-handed.
the only class I recommend not playing is the class that only gets one weapon, which is the warrior, I think, just the regular warrior. It's like the advanced class of fighter, because fighter you get 2 weapons. On warrior, you only get the greatsword, which means you only have 3 skills, which is just doesn't feel great, because you're missing half of your kit. If you want to play a heavy armor fighter, play the Magic Knight.
Magic Knight.
It is
and that's
super
something that's
fun.
not something you choose at the beginning. That's something you go into.
It's an advanced class, so yeah, you'll have options between other classes soon. Vocations, you gotta pick the Mage Knight, great. The Magic Archer, best class in any game ever.
I think when I played it, I played Striker, which was kind of like the halfway between like a rogue like character and a
Yeah.
Now you say Magic Archer.
character.
Are you saying this best class in any game ever because you have swarm missiles?
You have swarm missiles,
Yeah.
Alex. You have your bow is a swarm missile launcher. Is how that class works. That's exactly why. It is because it is the closest thing to a mech game that you can get in fantasy.
Plus, Ryan and I have discussed before. We love having our companions, our AI companions, and man, that first game went all in on the AI companions.
Why did you know that went hunting packs? Masterworks all. You can't go wrong.
Harpies! Harpies!
It's great. There's a reason that most of the lines from Dragon's Dogma Companions became memes, because they're really funny. You run around and they just start screaming like crazy. Yeah, no, I'm super excited for this. I think this is a game that to me really nailed the feeling of like Dungeons and Dragons adventuring.
Oh yeah.
But in a single player game. Like that's a thing that I think even most Elder Scrolls games don't necessarily get right. Like they're the closest thing to it, but Dragon's Dogma really gets the like tactics side of it right. Of like you're going through with a party that you construct that is meant to counter situations that you're going up against, which feels very like classic D&D.
In the tactics regard, I can see that. I found it really off-putting, and it was one of my major things I bounced off of in that game, is that not only plot-wise, but also just personality-wise, all those companions are literally soulless.
Oh, that's fine.
Oh,
I just like having...
Okay, this is the crazy thing, though. That's part of the story, Alex. That's part of the story. It's not like a thing that's just there to be there. That is built into the fundamental nature of the game. Because when I fight the final boss of the game and it's Reggie Fils-Aimé, I lose my mind. Because I made my pawn Reggie Fils-Aimé. And that sounds like a spoiler. It's not, because it's nonsensical. That's a sentence that is nothing. There is some wacky stuff that happens towards the end of Dragon's Dogma in like one of the routes. It's insane.
For you guys, I will give that game an honest try again. But the two
I will
times
encourage probably play it with a guide.
Okay, the 2 times before that I had tried to play it, I bounced off it super hard and just could not get into it and actively disliked playing it.
Man,
but there is many games. I'm not saying the game is bad. I am saying that I disliked it. But there's been multiple games before that I've come back to and loved after hating. So
and Alex, at the end of the day, we're being hard on you. But the thing is, it's okay to have bad opinions sometimes. It's okay to have
Alex,
stupid
we know
opinions.
that when you go back and you play the Sorcerer is what you want to play to, is you want to play to where you get the Sorcerer, and then you're going to cast the spell High Bolide. And when you cast the spell High Bolide and a bunch of spears of ice come and impale a dragon, you're going to feel really good about yourself.
The Sorcerer does sound more interesting than whatever like generic class I played.
You're gonna feel great about yourself and also really stupid for having this opinion to begin with.
Yeah, you'll feel bad.
I don't know if I should play Dragon's Dogma 1 again or just wait till Dragon's Dogma 2 comes out and it'll probably be the same game but better.
But in Dragon's Dogma 1, you could get to the end and have the dragon, tell you about your beloved, who of course, because you didn't know it is a system in the game, it's going to be Fortunaut the merchant, who is a large middle-aged man who the dragon is going to dangle in front of you and say, "Oh, don't you wish you hadn't been bad?" And then you could rescue your lover, who is a middle-aged man who owns a shop. because you didn't know it and didn't do any other quest lines.
See, the longer we can put off talking about Marathon, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're about to hop into it. So we've got a couple games left. We're going to blaze through some of these because some of them are not super big news. Resident Evil 4 is getting a VR mode.
Yep.
That's the next thing.
Not the same as the other Resident Evil 4 VR that already exists.
Yeah, not the one on Oculus. It's the one on PSVR, which is actually the new Resident Evil, but PSVR.
Yeah.
After that is Marathon.
So, okay.
Yep.
Alright, here's the thing. This trailer starts, and we see some really cool visuals right off the bat. I was immediately engaged just by the unique color palette and the look of everything.
Soundtrack's
and I was
cool
like,
too.
The soundtrack was gorgeous.
And let me guess, you
then
didn't
I
like
saw
it the second the frame Bungie came in.
And then I saw the Bungie logo, and I took a step back, and I was like, okay.
Ugh.
Here's the thing, though. I have been asking for a single-player shooter from Bungie for a very long time, because with Destiny, I'm getting there. Because with Destiny, I'm like, all right, I am no longer convinced that these guys can do online stuff in a way that doesn't piss me off. That's just where I'm at now. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I guessed it was Marathon. This was my other big guess. I was like, oh, is this Marathon? Oh, it was. It was cool. I was like, okay, we're gonna get this cool first-person shooter. It's gonna look really cool. Marathon has so much rich, deep lore you can pull from to make a really interesting story, because they don't have to worry about PvP online stuff. We can just get a nice, focused first-person shooter, like a story. And I was like, wow, this looks cool.
Save that one for Marathon 2 again.
And then Brett posted in our Discord that it's a extraction shooter, and I'm gonna lose my mind. Bungie's gonna Bungie, and they'll never make a game that I'll probably enjoy ever again, and I have to come to terms with that.
I will say, so first of all, I really, really don't like that Marathon is what they've decided to call this. Like, that's my biggest problem, is that I really think making this game called Marathon is a marketing move, like 100%.
Literally, the only thing that you can tell is Marathon-esque from the trailer are the battle roids and the fact that the Marathon has been impaled by a ship in orbit.
Yeah, like, this doesn't look like Marathon outside of a few things. It doesn't... Like, if this were a new look for Marathon, I'd be okay with that, you know, but this is not... We're not doing Marathon. We're doing a PvP extraction shooter.
That's called Marathon.
That's called Marathon. And honestly, I'm okay with a Bungie PvP extraction shooter, because I think part of the big reason why Destiny 2's PvP is often not very fun is because it's a game that is largely designed around the multiplayer PvE side of things and not the PvP side, and they just can't split their time between both. Like, it's just not... They have chosen at this point to focus on the single player and like co-op side and not the PvP side, which I think is the right choice. But like, I know that team can do PvP, so I'm excited to see that they are getting to do a PvP game, because I want to play a Bungie PvP game again. I'm very excited about that idea. I'm just like, already I am exhausted of extraction shooters. Like,
I think that some of the design elements that go into Marathon and other games from that era that are like Doom and whatnot could be interestingly used in an extraction shooter. Those like cramped interior corridors, locked behind keys and whatnot, could make for interesting environments to have an extraction shooter in. So I still have some hope. I do agree, though. I feel like even if they wanted to go with Marathon, save the name Marathon nothing else for another real Marathon game.
Please.
This
could
be...
give this a subtitle.
If this were Marathon with a subtitle, I'd be fine. But this is Marathon, period. Like, hard stop. We are calling this game Marathon. And I think to anyone that actually knows what Marathon is, that is not a good impression. Like, I think what they've instead done now...
For those who don't know what Marathon is, those games are entirely free and open source online.
They are
great.
Wonderful.
They're a very good series of Doom
an amazing story.
Bungie games.
Know how to read.
Yeah, they're very good, and they're a lot more. They have a lot of interesting story going on. Of course, temper your expectations to that era of video games. Like, story was very minimal at the time, and it's very minimal there.
Do you like Doom? You'll like Marathon.
But yeah, that the thing to me is that this is just a really. I think what the marketing wanted is to have all the things that were like, oh, they've revived Marathon. I think what has instead happened is they revived Marathon. Oh, it's an extraction shooter. Now I'm angry.
Yeah.
And there are already a lot of people that are angry at Bungie for a lot of reasons.
Which, hopefully, if they showed this trailer off and they aren't too far into development, please say something about
it. It doesn't matter if they're in development. Just add a subtitle. Just be like, this is Marathon Extraction or something. Like.
And I actually wouldn't mind if this game... well, first off, I just hope this game is good. Like, once again, I never hope a game is bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I hope that this game is good, and I hope that it kind of paves way. Like, this could be I want this to be contained. I don't want to add a PvE mode to this game. Then we're in the same place.
Then we have the same problem. Like, if we do a PvE version of this, it needs to be a different game. Like,
but I hope that this game is fairly good, and I hope that it is popular enough that they can say, "Hey, the Marathon IP has some value
going
here."
On. Yeah.
Yeah, and take the new art style. Hopefully, there's maybe some new lore elements, and do a marathon that's its own like single player marathon game.
And to that point, I watched their Vidoc after this, which I haven't watched a Bungie Vidoc in a long time. They are so overproduced. Anyway, I watched their Vidoc on this, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we want to have this continual story on this seasonal model." I was like, "No, we're doing." And you know what? It's not the seasonal model. It's not the seasonal model. It's the idea of
I'm
like.
Still here.
It's the idea of like,
I'm disappointed from afar.
We're gonna be like introducing this story through this like seasonal model. I'm like, no, don't do this again. Like, I know deep down that if Bungie really wanted to make a single player like narrative driven shooter, they could make a good one. I still have faith in Bungie because they're really talented people that they could do something like that.
The seasonal story in Destiny is good.
If you're a new player,
yeah,
you have no idea what's going on.
I have all but abandoned Destiny because I just can't keep up and no longer have interest in it.
Yeah, like I have incredibly fond memories of Season of the Seraph, which Alex and I played through last year when it was live, and now it's fully just gone. And like, there's a character that dies in there that is a character that's in the tower normally, and now you just go there, and if you haven't played the game, you're just like, what happened? Like, where is this character? What's going on? And you will not know. And that's legitimately the most frustrating thing about Destiny, is that the content is so good, and yet it is so consistently completely shunted out of existence.
You mentioned consistently. The thing that you mentioned does not happen in that season, but it happens twice. It happens in Season of the Seraph and Season of Defiance, which just wrapped up, and which is where another character who is normally in the tower is no longer there.
Go ahead, sorry.
I am getting so sick of seeing people that are clearly so talented make a story that relies so much on external things and just story that is told and then cut. I'm so sick of people who are clearly so talented telling a story that is so truncated where you have to go all these other places to figure out what's going on. I know that they're capable of a good straightforward story where you don't have to do pounds and pounds of homework to figure out what's going on.
I mean, the original Marathon is a bit of a wiki game, but
that's also a product of the time.
Yeah,
that's fine.
And I don't think that this one will be. Well, maybe it will be. But my fear, I think a seasonal story could be fine for an extraction shooter. But I think that they're going to put more story into it than a typical PvP extraction shooter. So I think that sadly that seasonal structure will mean story is lost.
And I think I've said this maybe on this show before, but for me it's like I I'm done with Destiny. I don't want to go back. I don't know. I don't care how many people tell me it's good now. I don't care. I don't care anymore. But I was interested to see what they're doing next now that it seems like they're interested in branching off into more things. And this is what we got. And like legitimately, as someone who loves those, who loves Halo, who loves 343 Halo, and loved a lot of what Destiny did, it's just so sad for me that I can't get attached to anything that they're making anymore. And it's really frustrating because
and it would be great if there was something that could fill that void. But now I think part of the issue that makes it worse, Wyatt, is that now it's not only that there is not like a Bungie FPS game that I can just go play that isn't that is like a PvP focused game or like a single player game. It is that Bungie is now making games that are in an already crowded genre with already good examples, and like I think the bar is going to be so high to convince your average game player that a PvP extraction shooter is worth their time.
Especially with how many are coming out.
With how many are coming out, and also just like I think there's an overestimation of how much of that player base exists. Like every time a new one comes out, you're splitting the existing player base. I don't think they are getting new players.
It is a finite resource. People keep making games like, in this saturated in the saturated genre with an expectation that there's an infinite amount of players with an infinite amount of time.
Yeah,
and
it's the exact same that happened with MOBAs. Like MOBAs have gone out of fashion just because the audience fractured itself so many times because developers kept making new games. Like it doesn't exist anymore.
To me too, it's for the extraction shooters genre. It also seems like companies are making these games in expectation that there is a player base that wants to play them, and there is, but I haven't ever. What's Tarkov is successful. COD is successful. It doesn't have a successful extraction shooter mode. It's in there, but like it's not the selling point.
Hunt is the only other extraction shooter that I can think of.
Hunt. And so that's the
Hunt
thing.
Is also more of a battle royale than an extraction shooter.
Hunt is almost
often
its own
more
thing.
PvE. Like
that's true.
And so that's the thing is like I'm not sure they're making games in this genre, but I don't know. Is it even really a successful genre? It's kind of a niche genre, I feel like.
And maybe the answer to that is just that this is not going to be as hardcore as the name extraction shooter implies, which I think would probably be for the best if this is cutting the difference somewhere. Because I just think a Tarkov-style game is not going to be able to get console mainstream appeal. Like, it will have a dedicated player base, but that player base is not going to be as big as I think the developer is thinking that it'll be.
I cannot imagine that Marathon will be as, like, sim-like heavy as Tarkov or even Hunt.
Yeah, I hope it
has to be more arcadey.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about Marathon again for sure, because I think there's no way to avoid it.
I'm going to rant about Marathon again.
Yeah, we need to see gameplay, because anything we keep going on about extraction shooter games and whatnot right now is pointless, because we don't know what this is going to play like.
And there was a teaser on that happened in the showcase that isn't on this list. Are we going to mention that at all? Or?
The Destiny stuff. So the big Destiny thing that they dropped is that Cade is coming back in some fashion and some thing. This is really
yay.
That's cool, I guess.
I mean, the best character is back, so that's good.
The reason we're not, I think, going to be super excited about this right now is just because, like, there's not really a huge point in talking about this a ton before we get to the actual expansion release. Just because anything we say is subject to change, and I think we've also already made our opinions known that, like, Cade is the most enjoyable character that Destiny's had in a long time, and killing him off was an issue because they advertised it publicly in the first trailer for Forsaken.
And now they're advertising that he's alive publicly instead of keeping that a fun twist.
There's a weird marketing thing going on here that I don't fully understand. I think I get the showing him he's alive more, just because I think a lot of people legitimately, when Cade was out of the game, they just lost interest just because there's no comedy rep.
If they kept that a secret and it was an actual twist during.
Imagine if they did, but they didn't, so we can't talk about it. We'll talk about that more when the actual expansion drops. I'm sure Alex and I will have stuff to say, but as of right now, it's just all right.
Whether it's good or bad, there will be things to say.
My feelings are truly neutral until the actual expansion comes out. Concord showed up for a moment. This is a thing that is also we don't know anything about it. It looks like kind of a
really liking the style of it.
Well, they've announced what kind of game it is on
What is
their...
it?
It's a PvP multiplayer FPS.
What?
Oh, huh.
I don't know. I still think the aesthetic
I am looking
is really
at PlayStation.blog right now.
See, this is the thing with doing a trailer like this. So this trailer showed us nothing, and then I hear that piece of information.
I thought this was like a space trucker game, or
I was like, oh, it's Space Truck Simulator.
And then you said PvP, and I went, oh, it's a space arena combat or something. No,
truly bizarre. That is one of the strangest things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And you heard that someone didn't like Dragon's
Dogma. I guess
Dogma
we
today.
know where Sony's like 10 live service games are now, but this is weird. Like
what a thing to blow their whole load
is
in one.
Really a strange thing.
You're not gonna tell me. Will there be extracting?
You're not gonna release these bit by bit and gauge people's reaction to having all of these live service.
Well, it feels
games,
like they're desperate to get these like live service games out there, and it's like no one's rushing you.
They shouldn't be. They should be busy trying to improve the medium.
And I think we're gonna get into this when we kind of wrap up this whole thing. But like, is a multiplayer game focus really what people want from PlayStation?
No. I don't like people.
I mean, it's fine that they're adding multiplayer games into their mix, but it is just weird that this is so focused on like one aspect that it's odd. It just comes across as strange that we're getting the announcement of so many similar games at once. Because I just don't know what to be interested in. Like, I don't know what to follow. I'm not sure what's going on in terms of gameplay, because so many of these are just cinematic trailers. Like, it's very little to go off of. Speaking of confusing things that PlayStation's doing, Gran Turismo movie is happening.
Wait, what?
Oh, wait a minute. That's a movie?
It's a movie. Yeah. So this is a Gran Turismo movie.
I thought they just got really good at their graphics.
I saw the full trailer for this in IMAX yesterday when Griffin and I went to see Spider-Verse. And
bizarre.
Wild. I have nothing to say about this because apparently the early pre-showings of this have had positive reactions. And
wow.
I don't know. I'm not going to say anything about this movie because I don't want to have to eat my shoe later, but looks wild.
I don't think I'm going to go see it.
The plot is like this guy is really good at playing Gran Turismo the game, and then he goes to race actual cars.
No. Okay, so the plot of this, I can tell you from the full trailer what the plot of this is, all right? And I can tell you almost the entire plot, because like in every movie trailer now, it spoils the whole movie. So what happens is this kid's good at Gran Turismo, it gets in fights with his family about being good at Gran Turismo but not having an actual job. And so his family is all angry at him. There's some crazy dude who is like, I'm going to make a racing team, and it's going to be a dude that plays video games. And so there's a challenge for the best Gran Turismo players to go become NASCAR racers, and they train like NASCAR racers. Everyone else fails. This one dude that they keep showing in the trailer made it because he didn't pass out when he was running like all the other nerds. And then they put him in a car, and then he races, and then a bunch of people are snarky about putting a gamer in a rocket car, and that's it.
Neil Blomkamp?
I actually wish
Neil
you had
Blomkamp movie.
I actually wish you hadn't told me that, because that sounds so insanely stupid, and I feel like
but Alex, it's based on a true story.
That makes the world a worse place.
Which I don't know any details
I don't know what to tell you.
And I think that makes it better. I think legitimately not knowing what the real story is here makes it more entertaining. So we're going to move on because we're already running over time and we have a few more things to talk about. So Project Q.
They used Q because they couldn't use U.
Sony, what's going on? What happened?
Here, Sony, I'm going to give you a history lesson. This is something that you don't know about, clearly. I'm going to give you a little history lesson. There is this little thing that came out. It's called PlayStation Vita. Right?
Oh, you know what? I know. There's this little thing that came out called the PSP.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
You can see there's like two of them. There's a follow-up to it.
Two different portable consoles from PlayStation?
And here's the thing. You can see how scratched and fucked up this thing is because I had this as a child. And I loved it so much, and it went with me everywhere. Hence the insane amounts of scratching everywhere. You know why? Because you made really good handheld consoles that had a different focus than what Nintendo was doing. You wanted just power condensed into a tight little handheld buddy here. and you made some really fun exclusives for it, and then you forgot this thing existed, and now here we are.
And now here we are. You've made a Wii U. I hope you're proud of yourself, Sony.
You took a DualSense controller, you slapped a tablet in it, and called it a day, and then you gave it a 4-hour battery life.
The thing that's even more bizarre to me is the selling point of this is that you can use it within your own Wi-Fi. Like, that's the selling point, is that you can use it in your own wireless network at your house.
Hey, again, Sony, you seem to have forgotten a couple things. You know what else could do that? It was also
you to be physically close to your console.
You know what? Hey, Sony, you know what else could do that, but could also play games like natively on it? This fucking thing. This did the same thing, and it had its own library of games. What are you
so
doing?
confused about this decision. This is just so bizarre to me because I don't know what the market is for this at all. Like, how many people want a streaming-only handheld that, from everything they've shown us here, is meant to be used on the same Wi-Fi network as your console?
The only use case for this is two things.
You can already do that on your phone.
You can do that on your phone.
Exactly. Like if you don't know how to set it up on your phone, the only way I could see this being
I've got a DualSense controller in my phone right here. I could do the same thing. Like,
buy a little attachment, $5 on Amazon.
The only way I see this working is if you just are super rich, you have a giant mansion, and you don't want to take your PS5 from your second living room to your fifth living room, and so you just bring this thing with you. That's the only application of this thing in my mind.
Assuming that you don't have multiple PS5s
exactly.
when you're that rich.
Exactly.
Just like, this to me is just so confusing because I just don't understand this. I think I understand that there will be a few people that will buy this and use it, but I just don't get like who at Sony was like, this is the thing we have to make. We're gonna make a streaming only handheld. Because it's just confusing and it doesn't even look good. Like, that's the other crazy thing to me, is that this looks bad. Like, this is a poorly aesthetically designed thing to me, of like, you have literally a square screen and then just sticking off the edge are two halves of a DualSense. Like, there's no elegance to this at all. There's no design to it. Like, I don't know. It bothers me on every level as a designer of things that this is what they came up with. Like,
and I already mentioned this. It is rumored to have a 4-hour battery life, and like that's the best it can do.
But I'm like so confused as to how expensive is this gonna be? Because the DualSense is already almost $100, right?
I was gonna say it's probably like $300.
You have to have your PS5.
Buy another PS5. The price point for the only price point that to me that makes sense for this as a possible option to consider is below $150. I don't think that's going to happen.
There's no way it's going to be.
There's no way, right? And if it's going to be like, it still has the problem of being such a specific audience. Like, if I need a new controller, I'm not gonna buy this thing instead. Like,
oh my
so
god,
bizarre. They did announce earbuds. I mean, those are cool, I guess. You could use some PlayStation earbuds.
I don't know.
I have no issue with that.
That earbuds case looks really big.
I don't like the case. Yeah, my wireless earbuds are just like this little thing, which is fine. That's a nice small case, but that thing does look big. It could be that it isn't as big as we think, though, because it is just, there's no scale against it, so we don't know how big it actually is.
Gotta get a banana.
Yeah, we need a banana for scale.
I don't understand.
It's like, at least the earbuds, I think, have a use. Like, I could see someone buying some Sony earbuds because they want earbuds to play games on their PS5 with. Like, that's a use case that exists. The streaming handheld is just bizarre. Like,
it's a use case if there were no other wireless earbuds out there that probably will be a better value than that because they're going to be marked up.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
Sony does have an audio division, and they do make really good headphones most of the time. So I could see these legitimately being relatively good.
Well, but like,
probably bundle them with a controller at some point too.
Yeah. All right. Well, in this immense amount of confusion that I'm sure, again, this is one of those things where, like, I cannot wait to see what the public reception of this is when it's live. Not because I want it to fail, I just want to know, like, am I wrong? Did they guess right that this is actually, like, the next big thing, and I'm just crazy? Because
there's no way.
It can't be.
Maybe I'm the one who's out of touch, and this will be, I think, the proving stick of if I am. So excited to see at the end.
We love a good Hall & Oates reference.
All right, I think we do know something that is probably going to be well received, which is Spider-Man 2. This is the big gameplay moment for Spider-Man 2. This game comes out relatively soon, supposedly. I don't think we have an exact date yet, but it's still slated for this year. Fingers crossed that it actually comes out. This is a lot of question marks with things like that generally.
I'll wait as long as I need to.
I will happily wait till next year. Like, don't get me wrong, I will happily sit by while you take the time you need. But it says fall, which isn't even hitting the winter season. So supposedly it's going to be out in the next couple of months, which
crazy.
Not next couple of months, but the next like 5 months. Which yeah, that is crazy to me that we don't have a date yet. But at the same time, Insomniac is generally pretty good at sticking to dates when they've announced close things. And even if this slips into next year, I'm not going to be upset. So.
And I've said this every time we mention Insomniac. Perfect track record, near perfect track record. Like
don't jinx it.
These guys never miss, and I have very little doubt.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with that. I mean, like Spider-Man was fantastic. Spider-Man Miles Morales, I think, was maybe even better. Shorter, but both incredible. Yeah. They did Ratchet and Clank at almost the same time. Really good.
Rift Apart was great. I had such a fun time with that. That was great. Yeah. These guys, they crank out at a pace that is
probably not healthy in the workplace.
Probably not.
They
must have like a huge team.
They're probably shuffling people in and out of teams.
Still,
I would even imagine that probably Miles Morales was a smaller team than the first Spider-Man, and they were probably already starting on Spider-Man 2.
I mean, it also helps that I think these look like true sequels in ways that a lot of games now feel the need to just like completely reinvent what the game is for a sequel, which I think is weird because that was never the case before. And I think for games that are like rapid follow-ups to older games, like Spider-Man, these games have been coming out in a relatively quick time span to each other.
Spider-Man has to rely on primarily the same map as well.
Yeah, like we don't want you to change the map. We don't want to play Spider-Man all of a sudden in Los
Angeles.
Although
apparently we're getting Queens?
We're getting Queens.
Yeah, well,
Brooklyn,
that's
supposedly.
I mean, like,
ooh,
that's cool, but like, still probably like 2/3 of the map are going to be similar.
Yeah, like so. What they've said is that the map for 2, I believe they said, is about double the size of the other games because they're including Queens and Brooklyn. And they might be extending Manhattan to actually be a little bit more realistic, but
was the map in Miles Morales exactly the same size as
I think
the Spider-Man game?
Yes, it was. Yeah. I mean, they changed elements about it.
Yeah,
but
to be winter themed, because I felt like it was smaller. That could have just been familiarity from the first game.
I also think that there was a little bit less going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably felt smaller because there was like less things.
It was one main story. There wasn't like a B or a C.
Yeah. Whereas Spider-Man 2 feels like it's going to be bigger just because of the nature of things happening here. I also really like that they're moving to show some of Brooklyn and Queens, just because like that's a very iconic Spider-Man setting. We just haven't gotten it before. Like all the games are set in Manhattan because Manhattan's super recognizable, but now we have the means because this is a sequel. And they've had a lot of time to move into a further out view. So I'm excited about that opportunity to see some of the other areas of the city. I think that'll be very fun.
And it looks like we're also getting Black Cat back as well, because she was shown in the...
We got like a screen with a bunch of characters in it. I haven't looked at that largely because I don't want to spoil any appearances for myself too much.
It was... there was not much new in the way of news there.
Yeah, it showed most of the characters in the old game that are still kicking around. So yeah, I'm super excited to see these characters again. The Venom suit looks very cool. I'm sure that's not going to turn into a big story beat at some point.
I was pretty surprised to see that so prominently featured, but it looks incredible.
Yeah. I'm gonna say
and
this.
Kraven the Hunter, underused villain.
Yeah.
One of the best Spider-Man
Yeah,
villains,
that's exciting. That's exciting. I'm gonna say this too. A lot of people were expressing disappointment when Insomniac declared that, like, no, this is not like a co-op game. Was anyone really expecting there to be co-op?
Yeah,
No.
like, that's a thing that people invented on their own. That's not.
Yeah.
Insomniac has never implied that.
It is first of all not surprising, and second of all, I
Insomniac's
really don't
not
think it was
known for it.
needed. Yeah, I don't think
I'm more
it was
excited about the
needed.
idea of this having like GTA style character switching. Like that's super cool.
Purely just because of the insane stuff that you could do with like the various set pieces, which we saw a little bit of. Like seeing the same set piece, like unfolding set piece from two different perspectives is so much
Super
fun.
cool.
That's a
I'm
fun
gonna be
idea.
really interested too in replayability if there may be certain missions that you can play as different characters.
Yeah,
If
that would be
they
really
may
fun.
change,
That's the thing.
change dialogue at least. There was certain things I was like, okay, so the first Spider-Man had recorded for the majority of the conversations 2 versions of the conversations. This one I think mathematically could have up to there's if Spider-Man is running or swinging, he has more effort, like exertion in his voice.
Cool.
And so I was like, this game could have theoretically up to 6 versions, because there would be 2 variations for Peter Parker outside of the black suit, walking or running, and then 2 for Miles, and potentially 2 others for black suited Spider-Man, depending on how they do that. I'm thinking that that's excessive, but
It might be just like a voice modulator and not actually any lines. Yeah, I'm super curious. I think everything they showed here looked great. The only weird thing to me is the UI having like the helmet effect is just odd in a third-person game to me. It just doesn't. I don't think you need it to have the helmet look here.
I'm very excited
like
to see if they continue the Green Goblin story beats from the first
I was
game.
going to get to that.
I really feel like they will, and I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. There's probably more that they're not showing, or I definitely thought there was stuff they weren't showing in this game. I think that I have some theories on where this game is going already, but we'll get there when we get there. I wouldn't be surprised if they're kind of gearing up to like just continue teeing up Green Goblin teasers, and then that will be like the villain
The
of
third game,
the big villain of the third game. Yeah.
I am interested to see. I am interested to see how this comes off of, because they had that like after credits tease in Spider-Man where they did
it's in both.
They did tease. Yeah, they did essentially tease like the Venom symbiote was in it. And so, but now that it's on Peter, it's like I am so interested to see like
it's also
how it gets there.
We have 2 characters here, so I imagine there's going to be villains that interact more with one or the other. Like I feel like we're going to have a Miles centric character at some point.
I wonder, to me, if Miles will have more of his own side quests centered in Brooklyn, and Peter will have more of his own side quests centered in Queens. Like, because Miles is from Brooklyn and Peter is from Queens. So
I would love that. It'd be super cool. So yeah, I think we're all pretty positive on this. I don't think anyone had any major issues with any of the first games. So
this was my game of show, like, for sure. Probably like the obvious pick, but like I
mean, they ended the show with it for a reason.
Game. Yeah, I love that first game so much.
Yeah, the only reason it's not for me is like the same reason as Final Fantasy 16. I have a lot of confidence behind this specific group of people making this game that like I have no concerns here, and I was already expecting good, so I'm not really blown out of the water. But that's not like a bad thing. Like I'm seeing what I wanted to see, and that's making me very happy. And I'm just ready to play the game now. Like they've sold me already.
Can we also just appreciate how perfect of a choice Yuri Lowenthal was to voice Peter Parker? Like, of all the voice actors that we have in the industry of video games, I cannot think of a better pick. He has that, like, I want to call it like boyish maturity that just fits Spider-Man so perfectly.
You saying he sounds like a nerd?
Sounds like Peter Parker.
I guess that is what I'm saying.
And it seems like we're getting a little bit of it.
Yeah,
but
the
I'm
game's
hoping...
really got... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I'll just go. There's some of it in the trailer, and I'm hoping we get more of it. It's a little bit of almost hammy overacting with the like black suit Peter Parker, much like the '90s show and the "I'll chase you to the ends of the earth" shocker.
I gotta ask Alex, are we gonna get a Bully Parker reference?
Oh my god!
I think that those little like waves he does in the first game if you melee near a character, I bet we'll get a little bit of that.
He'll do like a little spin shuffle, instead he'll do like
he already did like the finger gun thing.
Oh, can't wait. Yeah, looks great. All right, that's the PlayStation showcase. I think overall pretty positive, aside from the fact that a lot of these games didn't show gameplay and didn't show UI, which just to me means I don't have a beat on like how close to completion these are. I don't know if it's a thing I'm really gonna enjoy. Like, I would love to see more of that from these, but otherwise I think good showing for everything. Even stuff that I'm not super interested in, like Marathon, now at least had a good showing here. So yeah, I think it was overall a very good showcase. But
I was surprised when I saw that a lot of the general reaction was like, "Oh, Spider-Man carried the entire thing." No, that's not true at all, in my opinion. I think
people are saying that need to play more games of a different kind.
I think what's happening. Here's what I think is happening.
Go outside.
Here's what I think is happening is that people were expecting more like PlayStation exclusives.
Which is fair, because we do also just not know what's happening with most of the other PlayStation developers.
Like, what else would it be? Like, we just got God of War. We just fairly recently got Horizon.
Well,
Bend. I guess we don't know what Ben's working on.
I think the big thing is that people wanted to hear more about Last of Us multiplayer, which we did.
Yeah,
not good afterwards. News, but we did.
Well, bullet point of that is that Last of Us Factions multiplayer is being rethought and essentially reconsidered. That a lot of the team has been moved off of it. So, yeah, hard to know how that's going to turn out at this point, but don't expect it soon. Is really the thing to know with that.
I mean, outside of that, though, I wasn't really expecting a whole lot, just because I feel like PlayStation has had their like big kind of salvo of exclusives, and now is the time where things kind of settle down for a bit, and then we're going to hear a lot more later. It's kind of what I was expecting. I don't know, and I think there are so many fun like indie games here that I feel like people aren't giving enough.
There's like very little from this. Like pretty much all the games except Foam Stars, rest in peace. Almost all the games here, I feel like there's. I have some hope for, at least. Whether they're necessarily for me or not, I think that there's things here that really show promise.
Mm-hmm. I think my biggest thing is that I've said this before. I love the Sony game model, right? Very narrative heavy, usually focuses on like, relationships between characters and stuff like that, and they're typically very grounded kind of experiences. It's what I love. That's my like that's what I love the most when it comes to playing games. And I'm not super into this whole like we're going to be introducing more live service games. It's just not something that interests me too much. It's not why I bought a PS5. I bought a PS5 for like the really killer single player narrative heavy exclusives. It's what I love. That's like my gamer bread and butter right there. And so it's a lot of projects that just does not excite me.
And I think the thing for me with the live service stuff is not that I'm like negative on live service games. It's that I'm negative on there being so many at one time that are all being advertised at the same show. And I think the issue is like, I as a player know that I am not going to be able to keep up with any of these. Like, I'm already in on Destiny right now. So if I play another one, that means Destiny's going, which means whatever releases has to be better than Destiny to pull me away from it. I don't think that's going to happen. And if something is better than Destiny to pull me away from it, I don't think it's going to be a live service game. I think it's going to be a slew of like Armored Core 6 and Starfield come out back to back, and I'm just going to skip a season of it because I will not have time due to the other cool games releasing. But like,
Diablo 4 is coming out.
I was gonna say, what
full
about that
release in a
for?
couple of days?
I feel like its
so we can
live
talk about
service
D4.
isn't very, it isn't an invasive live service.
So let's talk about this real quickly, and then we'll end the show. Caveat here: I work on Diablo 4 as a world designer. This is not any opinion other than my own. It's that ARPGs in general, I think, are a better genre for live service because they're the genre that kind of originated this sort of model of like Path of Exile, Diablo 3. We're doing this way back when, because in an ARPG, the point is loot grind. Like, the entire core loop is around a loot grind because that's what the people that play these games tend to find fun. It's how they're designed. It's what, it's really cool to see a unique item drop, and the gameplay is meant to be fun enough to keep you going for hundreds of hours with new and varied characters and whatnot. Diablo 4's like live service model is functionally very similar to other Diablo games, just with more because the development team is bigger. Like, it's not that different. And I think the case here is just that, like, there's a reason that for Destiny, live service works pretty well, is because Destiny takes a lot of ARPG things. Like, Destiny has the loot grind, it has all the stuff that tends to make a live service format like that work well. I think it's just the content delivery structure for ARPGs in general works as a live service a lot better than other games, or other genres. And maybe it's other genres just haven't done it as well yet. Which I think would be probably pretty accurate. I think there is a live service model that could work better for these games, but
let's see if Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League can pull it off.
I honestly think Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is aiming for an ARPG live service model because it's having the ARPG stats. The problem is going to be that the loot's not going to be good. That's going to be the problem, and like. You need good loot to have the live service stuff work.
It is all generic guns for characters who, for the most part, have never used a gun.
That's the problem. It's like Destiny. People are often excited about the new exotic drop every season because it's a cool new thing that has a measurable gameplay effect. So I think there's a lot of reasons why ARPGs and games like Destiny can do live service, but it's also a thing of like, I can't play two of them at once. I can play two of them at once. I'm doing with Diablo 4 and Destiny, but I will not be playing like more than that. Like, that is the hard limit, and like as soon as something else comes out, I have to stop and take a break. And I think that's where like cracks are going to show in live service models for other games. Is just like people will burn out at a certain point in a lot of genres, and it's not going to be a thing that you can infinitely repeat.
It's live service games are not the kind of thing where every developer can just throw in their own live service thing because you can only focus on one at a time. Even something like, Breath of the Wild has... I did it again. Tears of the Kingdom has completely taken over my life ever since it came out. I'm not kidding you when I tell you that ever since the 12th, I have not played another video game other than Tears of the Kingdom. But that game, as long and as vast as it is, has an endpoint. I will stop playing it at some point, and it's not going to be because I'm sick of some live service model. It's just going to be I've experienced the content that I want to experience, and I can fully close the book. It still has an endpoint at the end of the day. All these games that are coming out are expecting you to be there for the long haul, to pay for whatever content they want to give you or something like that. And you can't just have a market filled with these games that require so much of your attention, because what's going to happen is you're going to have too few eggs in too few baskets. And I feel like with all of these extraction shooters and multiplayer stuff coming out from Sony at the same time, that's what's going to happen, Yeah,
for sure. All right, well, this was a long episode. We've had a lot to talk about. We covered a lot of stuff. Let's go to shoutouts, and then we're going to end next week. The Xbox and Bethesda showcase is on Sunday. So our Sunday plan, we're going to do a live reaction to that. And then Alex, you're going to play Mortal Shell at the regular podcast time. So we're going to have some fun stuff going. Fun content next weekend. I'm very happy that Xbox and Bethesda put this on the weekend and not the middle of the week like Sony did.
They did it just for us. Just for us.
Well, for everyone who has a job.
Yeah,
it was a 9 to 5 job.
You guys are like messaging about this, and I'm like, I'm at work doing work.
Yeah, I had
So
to
am I,
change
but I
my
can look
lunch
away from
break
the
to
screen.
account for it, and I could only do that because I'm in a time zone that allowed for that. Like, so, yeah,
I'm like
it's
wrapping
wacky.
up my day here.
Yeah, it's crazy. I wonder why shows tend to happen on those time slots. It just seems odd, but I am glad for Xbox it's on the weekend. All right, shoutouts. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. My shout out goes to Seven Samurai, which is a movie that I've been watching in chunks because it's a 3.5 hour movie and I
Yeah.
don't have the time to watch it in one sitting or the patience. But it's enthralling. It's super cool, and I can't wait to watch more Kurosawa movies and then go play Ghost of Tsushima again.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. All right. Alex, go for
I
it.
got one that I'm going to massively shorten from the note that I originally told you. So effort makes things taste better, and at the end of the day, a pizza is a pizza.
Okay.
That's the whole story.
That's a good way to put it, Alex. Does that mean the effort didn't make it taste better, and you wish you had?
No, they both go into this thing. I was trying to make a pizza today. Was doing like Zoom cooking with some friends and family, and at least one horrible thing went wrong on every step of the process. Not getting the ingredients, the dough not rising and then suddenly over rising and exploding in the refrigerator. The dough staying as a liquid form until I put 6 extra cups of flour into it to 1 cup of water. That is not how chemistry works. That dough needed to be solid long before that.
It's pretty good.
I'll do it.
Call of Duty level rant on pizza effort.
Oh yeah. All right, Alex, what you got?
All right, this one's pretty easy. Shout out to just Star Trek and Deep Space Nine. I don't know. I've been watching it. It's good. It's been good for since the 90s. So like no news really there. I'm just enjoying it.
All right, I'm gonna shout out to the me yesterday morning, not knowing that Spider-Verse is the first part of 2 movies. Which was apparently made clear somewhere. I didn't know. So we went into this 2-hour-long movie.
In the original teaser, it said Into the Spider-Verse Part 1, and then I think they
fully missed it. Fully missed it. So I went into this going like, oh, it's going to be a self-contained movie. And then I get hit with the hard to be continued at the end, and I was simultaneously so happy because it was incredibly good and I can't wait for more, but also incredibly angry because it was incredibly good and I can't wait for more. So, yeah, Across the Spider-Verse was extremely good, very well worth watching. It might have topped the first movie for me, depending on if the follow-up is better.
Praise.
I think, dude, the first fight scene in that movie with the there's a villain that has like the parchment look was incredible.
Oh, Spot? The Spot?
So
that
good.
guy?
No, nothing to do with Spot. It's just like a one-off show-off fight. They take the Vulture from like a Da Vinci realm.
Oh.
Who shows up, and it's just like a cool paper crafty looking fight. It was incredibly cool animation.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm seeing it tomorrow night, but I'm also seeing it with my girlfriend at a drive-in theater next weekend. So that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna end up going to see it again because it was really good, and I cannot wait for the next one. All right, well that's the show. As always, Tuesdays, 7 a.m. Pacific time now on the podcast platform of your choice, or Twitch, or YouTube. We're on all of them. Got fun stuff next week. Lots of games to talk about. Play Diablo 4. I might be biased, but it's pretty good.
I'm not biased. It's pretty good.